We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. It's the new year. People are now interested in wellness. From Halloween to Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's, people are busy partying, and now they're feeling repentant, and now they're interested in taking care of themselves. And my guest is Steve Breitbach, who has been involved with natural foods for a long time and now has a bee pollen company. Steve, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you, Josh. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Welcome
Happy
to the
New Year.
Happy New Year. Why should I use bee pollen?
Well, bee pollen has been known for centuries, from the beginning of human civilization, really, that it's had therapeutic, medicinal properties, very nutritional. It's basically what's classified as a superfood, commonly referred to, and in my opinion, is probably the superfood. It's one of the only foods that occur in nature that have the full range of nutritional, the essential nutrients, meaning it has the essential vitamins, minerals, amino acids, enzymes, coenzymes, phytonutrients. I mean, you name it. The bees, for some reason, they're intuitively, when they go out and collect this food, they're bringing it back to the hive to feed the colony, and it contains everything that sustains life. So as humans, when we eat it as well, it has the same effect. It's in a microscopic form, so it's absorbed quickly and easily into the bloodstream, and as a result, you get a really great beneficial balanced energy from it, boosts the immune system, helps regulate the hormone production. And as we get older, we begin to recognize the importance of that.
Oh, yeah.
And so bee pollen has been recognized for a long time as having regenerational properties, having this what's referred to as like reversing the aging process, if you will. And as I get older, and I've got into bee pollen again after a long hiatus from it, as I'm kind of advancing in age a little bit, I've recognized without any doubt that this is the case. And although maybe medical science or the FDA or whatever does not recognize that, or they won't recognize that, I think common sense it prevails.
Well, what does bee pollen? So, if as an athlete, it makes me feel peppier. Is that what it does?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned athletic. I mean, it's one of the reasons why it's become more popular in our modern age is there was a time I think it was in the 40s, some Russian scientists, they discovered that there were the high concentration of centurions in living in a mountain village and somewhere in Russia. And I'm sorry that the exact location escapes me at the moment, but what they discovered was these people were all beekeepers. So they all had bee pollen and honey as part of their diet, and so it became pretty evident that the qualities in this pollen was helpful to longevity. Years later, it became popular in Olympic athletes. I think there were some studies in Great Britain or China. They started using bee pollen for athletic training and discovered that it gave an edge to the athletes. And actually, I've kind of recently discovered that the world famous boxer Muhammad Ali, you might have heard of him. He was actually training with bee pollen in the height of his career as a boxer.
I see.
And it's one of the places where his famous quote, "Sting like a bee, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee." It actually is attributed to his use of bee pollen.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought that
And
was
how much bee pollen is it advised to use if I'm just starting out? Do I start out with like an eighth of a teaspoon? What do you recommend?
This is something it's highly subjective to the individual. Because some people are allergic to it, some people might have a bad reaction. So it's advisable to start slow. So take a little bit. I mean, even if it's just a couple of granules.
Literally just 2 or 3 granules. I could start out with
to start out with. If you're not having an adverse reaction, go for it at that point. By all means, experiment with it. Go increase the dosage. But I would say to start out, a tablespoon is generally a great place to start. Maybe about half a tablespoon, just to get started. But then work your way up, and just experiment with it. I think that in the early stages, you're going to recognize that there is a high concentration of nutrition, and sometimes the body's not used to that. Even though you're absorbing, good quality nutrients, the body may respond with with an immune reaction or something. That's just a natural effect of just having an increase of nutrition into the body. But so some people might recognize that or might misinterpret that as something adverse. But if you stick with it, you kind of listen to your body, and that's the thing. It's a very intuitive kind of work your way up. I've reached a point in my journey with bee pollen is that I got to a point where I couldn't get enough. I would eat it all day long, and as much as I could, because I wanted to find out. What is there a limit? Is there,
how much have you done over the course of a day? You can fess up here on the TV.
Probably, I would say about maybe 5 ounces, which is the equivalent.
5 ounces.
That small.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I went through a period where I was like really into it. And just
okay. That's an extreme amount of bee pollen.
And I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that for other people. But I was going through some period in my life where I really wanted to do this transformation, and was seeking. I was doing a lot of yoga, doing a lot of exercise, and so it was kind of my, I don't know. That was the thing that I was kind of holding on to.
I got you. No, that seems very fine. But if you were counseling, say, another fellow your age who is just starting out with bee pollen, you might start with just 2 or 3 granules or tiny quantity and kind of build up. And by the way, for you personally, when you were first introduced to bee pollen and you started taking bee pollen, how long before you noticed, oh my goodness, that kicked in? How long did it take for you personally?
Instantly.
Like literally within 5 minutes.
Within 5 minutes.
Sometimes things can happen right away.
Yeah, for some people, and like I said, it's a highly individual thing. It's not, it's not something that's going to be across the board. It's going to have everybody's going to have the same experience. Mm-hmm. It's not like that at all. It's a highly personal thing. So you really have to kind of have an intuition. You have to be able to listen to your body and recognize, what's happening. And some people, are more in tune to that, and other people are not. We're all on a different place in the continuum, but it's definitely doing something good. It's definitely it's
for athletes. It does give them more power and endurance. Is that something you notice?
Yes, absolutely. I just to give you an example, I used to, when I was in my bee pollen, when I was just really getting into it. I was going on a 5-mile hike. There's a trail near my house. It's a 5-mile loop. It goes up along these canyons, and I started out walking it. After a little while, I started running it. I could run it in an hour. It became easy, so I started putting on a backpack with jugs of water in it. I would carry 35 pounds of water just to make it harder, just to make it more difficult. And I found over time that it's the bee pollen. Like I said, I can't guarantee this is going to happen for everybody, but for me it was working, and I just found that it was, I was just making strides in athletics.
Now, your particular hive mind bee pollen, this is California bee pollen. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, the source of your product, the hive mind bee pollen, is exclusively from in the state of California.
Yes.
And why is that important?
Well, that's important for a couple of different reasons. It's important to know the source of, well, basically any food you eat. It's important to know the source. But when it comes to bee products and pollen and honey, I mean, it's the idea of that it being local is important to people, mainly when they're addressing allergy issues, because it's they're being affected by the pollen that's blowing in the air. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is just because California, I mean, it's probably one of the most fertile, diverse agricultural areas on the planet. Right. And so what we have here, we're lucky to live in a place that has a long growing season, which supports a wide range of nutritional plants. So the bees are able to harvest from not only a long pollen season, but of a wide variety.
Now, literally, this bee pollen, bees gather the pollen on parts of their body and literally bring it to the hive, and then the modern beekeepers now, who gather honey, separate the pollen from the honey. Is that correct?
The beekeepers? Not really.
Where do you get bee pollen? What's your source on this? I mean,
I work with beekeepers in Northern California. They're based out of the Sacramento area. They're fourth-generation beekeepers. They've been keeping hives up in the northern part of the state for just about 100 years now. They started out as with handshake agreements with the orchard growers, and they've been operating continuously ever since. And basically, they get the pollen. I mean, they from placing their hives around at different locations based on the bloom schedules. No,
I got that. In other words, this is literally a product. Bees gather the pollen from various flowers. I'm just asking.
Yes. Okay. The question was how do they separate it out from the honey? The bees do that. I mean, the bees will collect the nectar from the flowers, and that's something that they take internally. The pollen, when a bee lands on a flower, they're giving off like an electrical charge because of their wings and the fur. It's like a static cling type of thing. They land on the flower. The loose pollen is gonna stick to them just from.
Okay, that's very. I did not know.
Yeah, from an electrical charge. So the bee will pull all that pollen off of their fur and mix it in. They'll regurgitate a little bit of that nectar so that it becomes they can ball it up into what's called a granule, and they will store that in their leg. They have like a little pocket, and just naturally they've evolved that way to carry the pollen. So they keep that in their leg. And when they return to the hive, they pass it off to the bees that are in the hive, and they take it and mix it in with the honey, and it's fed to the brood. It's fed to the colony. It's basically the protein source or the nutritional source for the hive, for the colony, along with the honey.
This is California pollen. Years ago in natural foods industry, there was also Spanish pollen that was available, but it's more desirable to get a local pollen because it certainly would be fresher, correct?
Yeah. I mean, not all pollen is fresh. I mean, a lot of times, most commercially available pollen is dried, whether you go to the farmer's market and get it from a local beekeeper.
Is this dried pollen?
No, that's the
fresh pollen.
This is what makes my pollen different, in my opinion, superior.
Tell me.
Is that it is a fresh pollen. It is collected.
This is not dried pollen. This is fresh pollen.
This
might just be 2 or 3 weeks from the hive or something like that?
Yeah, it's collected directly from the hives and goes into cold storage. And I get that, and the beekeepers are keeping it in cold storage. When I get it from them, I receive it. I keep it in cold storage until I package it like that. And
then I should leave this after I buy it from you. I should leave this in my refrigerator or my freezer.
It's recommended. It's not essential.
No, I'm asking, refrigerator or freezer.
Yeah. I would recommend that.
Refrigerator,
or freezer. If it depends, if you wanted to keep it for the long term, the freezer's great because you're gonna kind of lock in those enzymatic activity.
Is there a problem with pollen and mold?
I've never experienced it.
In the literature that you've read, is there a problem?
I've heard of it. I've read about it. I've never experienced it. And the beekeepers that I've worked with, I've talked to them extensively about these things. Because obviously, I have issues about that. The safety.
Right. That'll be very important.
Yeah, very important. And I've been told that there's never been a problem. There's never been any pollen that's been returned. It's been tested, and it's right. And
that is an issue. And of course, I have noticed in some of the natural food stores that some of the bee pollen I've seen on the label said it comes from China. And I'm not here to, punch them around, but there have been issues about food quality in China. And I think the fact that this is a local California pollen gives it a distinct advantage. In my mind, as a natural foods guy, I would much rather consume a local pollen than a Chinese pollen, just because, unfortunately, they seem to make some major mistakes on a regular basis there.
It seems to be that way, when you read about, toys that have lead in it and stuff, there seems to be a lack of regulation, or even,
a lack of regulation.
Yeah,
yes.
A lack of concern even for, what's being exported. So, I mean, yeah, regardless of what you're taking, I mean, you gotta look into the source of that. Where is it coming? I mean, it's up to us to kind of have consciousness about what we're consuming. I mean, that's very important.
Yes, and also we're hoping that the government regulators are doing a good job, because we can't pay attention to everything. We do need government. Where can I buy this? And this is a 10-ounce package, right?
Yeah, that's 10 ounces.
And what does this retail for?
It retails around $18 a bag for 10 ounces. Roughly, I'm trying to hold the price and make it affordable, because
that seems very affordable for local, good quality, fresh stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since I think people can start out with really small quantities. And can I also put this in carrot juice or something, or how should I just right off the spoon? What's the best way, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's to eat it just by itself, raw, and then wash it down with some fresh juice is ideal. A great way to do it is to mix it in with smoothies. One of my favorite things to do is like an almond milk and a banana with a spoonful of pollen. It's like a fantastic breakfast drink. As a topping in yogurt is fantastic.
Steve, is bee pollen consumption weight dependent?
Weight dependent? You mean like?
No, let's say you're going to have a woman who weighs 110 pounds take this, vis-a-vis your weight. Would this woman who weighs 110 pounds use half as much as you use, or?
Like I said earlier, it's an individual thing. It's something that you listen to your body, and it's going to talk to you. I mean, you can sit there and eat the bee pollen, and at some point, it tastes great. You want to keep eating it, and then at some point, you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm satisfied. It really is an individual thing, and I don't care if you're a 10-year-old kid that weighs 60 pounds, or you're a 90-year-old man.
Alrighty.
It doesn't matter. It's like you have to. It's something that you have to kind of look to yourself for that answer. But as far as being weight dependent, I would say, no. It's like just experiment with it.
And where can I buy the Hive Mind bee pollen?
Hive Mind bee pollen is available online on my website. It's available on Amazon.com.
What's your website?
It's hivemindpollen.com.
Hivemindpollen.com.
Yes. And so I've made it available on the website so that I could make it available to anybody.
And it's always a California pollen.
It is.
And other than the 10-ounce size, do you have any other sizes?
I'm developing a 5-ounce size. It's a little bit easier, and that'll be more for my retail outlets, because what I do a lot of demos where I'm demonstrating the product and people try it. And what I found is that people come in and they love the product, they want to buy it, and then when they see it's $18 and they're kind of iffy about it. I'm making a smaller portion.
That's a good idea.
So that people
like to try it. If they like it, then they're thrilled.
Right. And then later they can graduate onto the larger size, But I'm so it's not available yet, but it's on the way. It will be, as we enter the new year. That's my strategy.
And what is the shelf life on the Hive Mind fresh bee pollen?
The shelf life is. If it's kept in refrigeration, I don't want to say it's indefinite, because that kind of sounds like I'm exaggerating, but it's if I had to put a time limit on it, say a year. But
it could be good for a year if kept refrigerated or frozen.
It could last a year. And I would say personally I'd say indefinite in my opinion, because I've been keeping bee pollen in my fridge because the thing about bee pollen is it changes all the time. I mean, it's never the same. That's the beautiful thing about it, is it's a very unique product in that regard. The bees are collecting from a variety of sources at different times of the year, so you get different flavors, different color, different textures. So there are times when I get bee pollen that I just love, and then when it's running out, I'll say I'm going to save this, because I don't want to lose this. I want to keep it preserved,
Sure.
So I'll keep it in the fridge, and I still go back to that a year later, and it tastes fine. It still get the same effect. So for my own experimentation with it, I don't see any degradation. I don't see any spoilage or anything like that.
Okay, great. Steve, once again, give us your website for HiveMind.
HiveMindPollen.com.
HiveMindPollen.com. Mm-hmm. And you're also local here in the LA territory. You do demos at farmers markets and things?
Not farmers markets, because farmers markets really want to see the actual farmer, the actual person who's doing this. And because I'm not really allowed to participate in the farmers markets. However, I am in several small independent health food stores.
You in PC Greens?
Not yet.
Where are you? Tell us.
Okay.
I'm
in Air One.
Air One is great. Yeah, on Beverly, they're great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, fantastic store. Great clientele there. I'm in. Let me see where I'm in the Lassens. Lassens chain.
They're also great.
Yeah, fantastic.
They've been around forever too. Good for them.
And let me see a few other smaller independents in Burbank. It's it's escaping me right now. Full of Life. Are you familiar with them?
Oh, that's the one where Clint Eastwood used to shop, I think, years ago. Oh, my God, yes. They were around forever.
Yeah,
I know them. Yes,
wonderful store.
Very nice.
It's just beautiful.
They have a little restaurant, too, did not?
Yeah,
yes,
fantastic place.
Yes.
So I'm in there, and I'm also in some markets out in Ojai.
Okay.
It's one of the first places I went to, because I thought that's the market. That's the crowd that would appreciate bee pollen, and I was right. They were very well received there. So I'm in a handful of stores around the LA area, and honestly, as a small operation, I've kind of got to a point where I got what I can. I'm busy.
That's very good.
I would love to expand it. I want, it's everywhere I go. The response is fantastic. It's just a matter of how much I can service it.
Well, Steve of HiveMind, Bee Pollen, it's been great fun having you on Here's to Your Health.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Young Connection, your one-stop connection for all your graphic design and commercial printing needs. Young Connection is a full-service printing and media design company dedicated to providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction. Young Connection provides swift response and rapid turnaround services for banners, brochures, business cards, letterheads, church bulletins, funeral programs, flyers, logo design, posters, and much, much more, all at an affordable price. Young Connection, the official printing company of LA Talk Live. Give them a call at 310-491-3336. That's 310-491-3336, or visit their website at www.youngconnection.com. That's www.youngconnection.com. Young Connection Printing and Media Services, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. for our New Year's show, we have a filmmaker who has done an important documentary on bees and bee health and how bees are important to the health of we humans. Miriam Heinen is also has a website where she sells bee products, bee pollen, bee honeys, etc. Miriam, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you on the show. So today we started out with some of your friends. We're doing kind of some information on bees today. And why did you make and this is your documentary, Vanishing Bees. Why did you decide to do this?
It's called Vanishing of the Bees. Why did I decide to do it? Well, the bees kind of flew into my life. And once I realized the gravity of the situation and what the honeybees symbolize, I was compelled to make a film, and I was also conscious of making a film that actually gives back and to be in service, much like the honeybees themselves. And bees pollinate a third of our food, 1 in every 3 bites, and they are disappearing all over the world, and we are dependent on them. They're not the only pollinators that are disappearing. Hummingbirds, bats, native bees, but they are the most important to us because they basically give us food.
And this documentation on the disappearance of bees and the importance of bees is pretty well known now. Is there anyone disputing this?
You mean why exactly they're disappearing? No one is disputing that they are disappearing.
But they're disputing. They don't want to admit that it's pesticides or insecticides, although it seems to be pointing out the direction that indeed that seems a likely connection.
Yes, when the movie came out and while we were making it, it took us 5 years to make this film. We were kind of on the cutting edge and also ridiculed for stating that there are systemic pesticides. But since then, there's been studies out of Europe, out of Harvard, out of Yale. The pesticide companies themselves will not take responsibility. But at the core of colony collapse, we believe that it's the systemic pesticide, these new types of pesticides that are enrobed in the seed or entrenched in the soil and take up into the plant and become part of the plant's vascular system. And then the bees take the pollen and the nectar back to the hive, and it doesn't impact the immediate generation, but when they go into their stores, and then it starts having effects, and these are neurotoxins that impact the navigational capabilities and kind of give them Alzheimer's in a way.
And that's pretty well documented, isn't it, at this point?
Yes, I would say so.
Right. But the people who manufacture the pesticides, insecticides, etc., they're still fighting a rearguard action on this one, is that it?
Yes, in the United States especially, well, yes, all over, they're not taking responsibility. We're talking Bayer Crop Science is one of the leading makers of systemic pesticides, and they've recently, the EPA put another pesticide that's of the same family on the market, and there's been lawsuits now. There's a couple of lawsuits against the Environmental Protection Agency because they're not doing their job.
Yeah, lawsuits seem like a very good way to, it takes a while to grind through the court system, but they have to respond to the lawsuits. They can't just ignore you.
No, but they can also kind of lag and takes a lot of time. They just buy time.
They buy time.
And these systemic pesticides, I believe these environmental toxins are also impacting our health as humans. And we talk about systemic pesticides. Bees are dying, there's sublethal doses, so it's very insidious and they die slowly. There's no way to say, hey, this is exactly what's killing the bees. Right. And it's the same thing with humans. The amount of the increase in allergies and autoimmune disease and cancer and autism, so on and so forth.
Well, I think the FDA does feel that 60%, some say 65%, of all cancers are environmental, and 30% roughly are dietary. And at least 5% we don't know. But certainly we know the problem with chemical exposure. Now, you alluded to the fact, is it better in Europe as far as problems with bees? Is the European Union doing more or less than the United States?
Well, the advantage is that in many parts of Europe they implement the precautionary principle, so they will not take a chance. Whereas here in the United States, they'll put it out there and then suffer the repercussions.
What is the precautionary principle? I do not know it.
So the precautionary principle is basically if there's any risk or if there's any chance that this might be dangerous, we will hold off from putting it on the market and we'll take precautions. Where in the United States, there's the provisional approvals and they'll put things on there, and the EPA is a mess. It's not doing its job.
So you're saying that in the 15-member European Union, would you, in your opinion, because you're the researcher, it's better for the bees and for the people? Is it safer there in your opinion?
I don't know about every place in Europe, but for instance, France, they implement the precautionary principle, and now there's a 2-year ban on some of these systemic pesticides. They say, let's say in France, that the government is afraid of its people, whereas here we're afraid of our government.
That's a cute line. Now, you made this movie on bees because you had health problems yourself.
No, I did not have health problems at the time. I just happened prior to making this film several years ago was in a crosswalk and was hit by a Ford Explorer and dragged 50 feet and broke several bones. I had a near-death experience, and it led to being quite sensitive and realizing that I think being stuck in fight or flight for such a long time, developed allergies to dairy, gluten, sugar cane.
Wait, excuse me, you mean to tell me you were hit by a Ford Explorer here in Los Angeles?
Yes, as a pedestrian.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that kind of put me on a path. I was a freelance journalist and writing pieces for Penthouse and The Hollywood Reporter. And after that, I really wanted to do something that made a difference. Worked for Morgan Spurlock, worked for Robert Greenwald, and then decided I wanted to make a film. And it just so happened that, as I said, the bees literally flew into my life, and I had some bee visitations. That while I was in the Dominican Republic showing the film at an environmental film festival, I so happened to be a victim of a pesticide spray. They were fumigating, and several months later just kind of lost all my strength, thought maybe there was something wrong with my thyroid. I know a lot about nutrition. I've studied on my own, and then realized that I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called lupus and fibromyalgia. And because I've taken precautions, natural precautions, and I've managed to keep it in remission naturally, as opposed to the doctor wanting to put me on antidepressants and prednisone and blah, blah, blah. And
none of which deal with the core issues.
No.
Right, for sure.
No, and that also kind of was a catalyst for me creating Honey Colony. And Honey Colony is a magazine and marketplace. It's a startup where we want to guide people to a healthier life, empower them where Western medicine fails.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so
what's the name of this group called? Honey Colony?
The website is called honeycolony.com, and we do feature bee goods. We do carry, for instance, hive mind bee pollen. So if you're, in Nebraska and want to have some local California bee pollen, you can.
And bees, what do they do for me again? Why am I interested in collapse of bee colonies? What does it do for me again? Tell me.
So bees pollinate 1 in every 3 bites of the food we eat. Everything from avocados to zucchini, trees, flowers, fruits, vegetables. We are dependent on them, and the correlation is that the bees are being poisoned, but our food supply is poisoned as well. If you look at all the processed crap in foods, we can't pronounce them, let alone digest them. And so I'm an advocate for clean, organic food. And the bees are responsible for that. We need them. They are environmental indicators. They are super important. They're ancient creatures. There's a lot of ancient history around them.
Where has your film been shown?
My film has been shown all over the world. We've translated it into 11 languages.
Ah.
We have an educational version, which is 30 minutes, that comes with a study guide to teach children. I think that the first step towards change is education.
Right.
And so we have a 30-minute version. It's been shown in film festivals around the world. It's created by Ellen, who's an Oscar-nominated actress. She's Canadian. I'm a Canadian as well. And it's available, and it's made a difference to educate people.
And let me ask you to predict the future. Do you think that because of the press that the colony collapse has received, much of it even favorable, in other words, they're not making fun of it. You don't see them really just slamming the whole idea it's an issue. Do you think that indeed it'll get better in the United States?
If I look at, let's say when I started in 2007, I myself didn't know that you truck bees from monoculture to monoculture all over. I didn't know that the bees pollinate our food. So if I look at now in 2014, we have come a long way. Talking about genetically modified organisms, the bees are in our consciousness more than ever before.
I think so.
There's a thriving movement of urban beekeeping all over the world. Ironically, the bees are doing better in cities than they are in the country because of the pesticides. So, New York,
that's interesting. Yes,
it's pretty wild.
And it was because people who live in the country for good health, because of the agricultural spraying, they have a lot of health problems. The farmers and the farmers' families, and the people who live in the country, they're exposed to a lot of very toxic material. And sometimes, as in your own case, one exposure can really cost you.
Absolutely. It's remarkable the amount of poisons that we're putting into the planet. So just to answer your question, that I think we still have a long way to go, but we just got to keep on trucking and keep on spreading the knowledge and also being the change that we want to see.
Now, since you had the unfortunate experience of being exposed in Haiti to what you
Dominican
feel
Republic.
Dominican Republic to these pesticides that potentially caused problems with the immune system, have you found any MDs in the United States who indeed recognize this as an issue and know how to successfully treat it?
I'm not working with Western medicine. I go there to get my tests. I think Western medicine is great for operations and so surgeries, doling out drugs, and running lab tests. But I take my lab tests and have my naturopath read them. I'm taking something. I take glutathione, which is I take it intravenously. A lot of people with autoimmune conditions have problems detoxing from their liver. That helps me a lot. And I take something called low-dose naltrexone, LDN. The patent ran out in the 80s, so pharmaceuticals there's no reason for them to use it because they can't make money off of it.
What's the name of that product again?
Low-dose naltrexone. It's an opiate blocker, and there's virtually no side effects. It helps people with autoimmune, all types from colitis to rheumatoid arthritis. So I'm a big proponent of that, and I eat organic, and I don't eat wheat. Inflammation is a huge problem. And all of these issues we talk about on Honey Colony, we are constantly talking about the food supply, genetically modified organisms, what's happening with food politics and food security. And we empower people and we write stories. For instance, I put together a smoothie package that does include hive mind, bee pollen, and also honey, that your next guest, Bloom Honey. And this package that I've put together helps keep my inflammation down. It's full of superfoods. So you realize that if you eat dense superfoods, you don't really need to eat a lot of food. It goes a long way and helps you lose weight.
So on a personal level, say 10 years ago, you were probably pretty careful, weren't you?
10 years ago?
And now you're much more careful?
No, I'm Egyptian. I grew up chubby. I used
really?
to be like 138 pounds. I'm like 109 pounds now thanks to changing my diet and, of course, exercising. It's been a slow progression. due to the accident, it's put me on a whole kind of trajectory. I've always been a spiritual person since 13, but now it's kind of fused with my mission to educate people about food. I really think food is thy medicine. I'm shocked at people's body.
I guess it's an insight that you have, and it's a good insight to have. Not everyone has it. Some people are still busy drinking soda because they just have no clue that it's a bad idea. They literally in 2014 have no idea that soda is a bad idea. And they really don't understand that.
It's also education. I mean, if you go to like Watts or, Inglewood, they don't have a Whole Foods. They don't have access to good food.
Right.
We have to empower people. There's like, for instance, in Watts, there's a woman called the Seed Lady, and she empowers her community to grow their own food so they're not dependent, to have farmers markets, to take back our food supply, and to realize that, when they're peddling McDonald's for an hour for $1, it's towards poor people. It's crap food. I don't know if I could swear here, but it's...
That's okay. It's pretty mild. And we can say that on this show. We can always edit it out if we had it to. But if I could make a comment, yes. I've always found that the natural foods enthusiast, there's nothing sociological about it. Theoretically, it's slightly more women than men, and it's people with greater levels of education and affluence. And while I agree with that, the reality is some people just get it, that what you eat is important. And it's not based on wealth or education or wherever you live in the country. There's no gender orientation. Some people just think, oh, that makes sense. Eating fresh food is a better idea. And I've been working with people with that for a long time, and I see much more interest in that now. And I never, as a younger man, could have predicted this. I never realized it would become so mainstream. And I know these ideas that we're chatting about are mainstream because less than a year ago on 60 Minutes, there was a lovely 20-minute piece about how bad sugar was for you. And when I saw that piece on 60 Minutes, I thought, I've lived long enough to see the discussion that sugar is bad for you on a mainstream show like 60 Minutes. That's not a put down of 60 Minutes. It's just an observation that 60 Minutes is not necessarily an avant-garde show. Mm-hmm. It represents consensus thinking. And the consensus thinking now is that processed sugar is bad for us. It's impressive, really. It's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, and this is not a trend that's going away. Right. It's only going to become...
It's not faddism, no.
No, and unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of people that turn to investigating what food is all about due to a tragedy or some health scare.
Right, sometimes, yes. Mm-hmm. Sure.
If they have a health scare, then they'll look into what they're eating.
Almost everyone that I knew from my generation who got into this in the 60s and the 70s got into it because they were working with Western medicine and they were unhappy with the results they were getting. They had some sort of either serious or less serious or semi-serious health problem, and that propelled them this way because they realized these ideas which are being dismissed, they work. And the Western stuff, or the allopathic medicine, isn't really working.
Yeah, and on the site on Honey Colony, I get calls. I do customer service, and I'm speaking to people, and they're so appreciative to be able to ask questions.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, but I'm a wealth of information and can suggestions and put people in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And give them some hope. They don't have to just be blindly taking prescription drugs. There are
right.
other solutions.
You're allowed to say
there.
that on the air. You can say that. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Once again, how can we contact you at Honey Colony?
You can log on to honeycolony.com. You can reach out to info@honeycolony.com. Check out our articles. Check out our eco products and organic
So you sell
goods.
honey and bee pollen. What else?
We sell detox products, a lot of superfoods, supplements. We're really careful. We vet them to make sure, not all supplements are the same. Right. A lot of supplements put in crap
right.
as well, right. Additives, fillers. So we're really supporting vendors that have integrity and that care about the quality of our food and don't only care about the bottom line.
Right. Well, thank you for being on Here's to Your Health.
Thank
it's
you,
been fun.
Joshua.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Young Connection, your one-stop connection for all your graphic design and commercial printing needs. Young Connection is a full-service printing and media design company dedicated to providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction. Young Connection provides swift response and rapid turnaround services for banners, brochures, business cards, letterheads, church bulletins, funeral programs, flyers, logo design, posters, and much, much more, all at an affordable price. Young Connection, the official printing company of LA Talk Live. Give them a call at 310-491-3336. That's 310-491-3336, or visit their website at www.youngconnection.com. That's www.youngconnection.com. Young Connection Printing and Media Services, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk.
Hi, this is Sequoia Neff,
And this is Jay Rios.
And I'm Sherrod Moore.
inviting you to join us every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Battle of the Sexes as we discuss his and her views on topics no one wants to touch.
Where we keep it 100% real.
And interesting.
And it is pure comedy.
So don't forget to tune in to Battle of the Sexes Mondays at 7 p.m.
Exclusively on LATalkLive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and AHA Radio.
Or watch and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure.
This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on LATalkLive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest is David Jefferson, who has the Bloom Raw Honey Company, which you can purchase in many of the natural food stores here in the LA area. We are doing a bee-themed discussion this morning. Dave, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you very much, Josh. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And what exactly is raw honey vis-a-vis the honey I can buy at the grocery store?
Well, first, I'll tell you honey. Raw honey is the natural, sweet substance that's secreted from flowers as nectar, collected by honeybees, and then processed and converted by the honeybees into what we know as honey. They do that by eliminating the moisture, fanning their wings, letting it cure, etc. There's honey, and then there's raw honey. 90% of what you find in the grocery stores, it shares the name honey, but it's a totally different product. It's apples to oranges. Most honey that you find in the stores has been pasteurized. It's heated to 170 degrees or more. It's ultra filtered, so there's no natural bee pollens in it. There's no wax. There's no propolis, which are superfoods in and of themselves. And by heating it so hot, it kills a lot of the health benefits that's in the raw honey. For example, the live enzymes, the pre and probiotics, denatures the amino acids. Raw honey is honey that the typical definition heated less than 120 degrees and not filtered. So you have the live enzymes intact. You have pre and probiotics. You have amino acids, a full range of amino acids. You have vitamins and minerals, including iron, copper, calcium. And sorry,
No, that's okay. I tell you, this is the way you say it is very succinct. So you're now why, if the raw honey has all those important principles which we want, why do they heat the honey you buy in the grocery store?
Well, they heat it for a few reasons. They heat it because they don't want it to crystallize. All raw honey will crystallize, and I'll explain what that is and why crystallization is not bad. But when someone sees crystallized honey on the store, they don't know that it's still good.
Right.
So they heat it to eliminate crystallization. If you heat it that hot, it will never crystallize. They also filter out the bee pollens and the propolis, which also filters out some of the small sugar crystals that will lead to crystallization. They also want it to be a uniform color. They just want honey. They don't want different varietal honeys, a white honey, a dark honey, an amber-colored honey. Oftentimes that honey is adulterated as well. It can be mixed with high fructose corn syrup. Some of the honey that's available on the store shelves has sweeteners and honey that's been illegally imported from China, where they add this corn syrup. So it's very important.
And so in other words, you could go to the grocery store and buy a major brand of honey at the grocery store, and they actually add high fructose corn syrup to that honey, but they don't tell you, the consumer.
Correct. Now, they may not do that in the U.S., but it may have been blended with honey that has been imported from China illegally, and what they do in China is blend with cane sugars, rice sugars, high fructose corn syrup.
That doesn't seem good. Now, tell me once again, tell my audience, what I get when I eat raw honey. Tell me the various parts of it.
Raw honey is a superfood from nature. It's obviously a main carbohydrate source, so you get energy. It's excellent for before, during, and after a workout.
Right.
But it's got vitamins and minerals.
So raw honey has vitamins and minerals.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A ton of minerals, a ton of vitamins. I mean, a
what
whole
kind
panoply
of minerals,
of vitamins.
What kind of minerals?
Well, I mentioned iron, calcium, selenium, and many others.
Okay, that's important.
As well as vitamins. I don't know all the exact vitamins, but it's at least 10 to 12 common vitamins that your body needs.
And this is in the raw honey. And if they heat the honey, then the cofactors are destroyed. Is that it?
Exactly, or denatured. Or not as bioavailable. Raw honey also has amino acids, a wide spectrum of amino acids. It has antioxidants and live enzymes. It's got the glucose in the honey produces an enzyme called glucose oxidase, which produces glucose oxidase. It produces a low but continuous production of hydrogen peroxide in your body, which is very effective in killing bacterial infections, fungal infections, or viral infections.
That actually seems very important. So you're saying, without making a diagnosis here, that I could use honey if I had a cold or a flu. It would be a good choice.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You should have a little bit of raw honey every day for health, for vitality, for energy. If you have a cough, a sore throat, a cold, it's very effective for fighting bacterial infections, viral infections, fungal infections. There's a whole host of other uses for honey as well. And because we don't filter our honey, we also have the bee pollen in it, You've already talked to Steve Brightback of Hive Mind. Bee pollen is a superfood in and of itself. So you combine bee pollen inside of raw honey, which is also a superfood from nature, and you have a very potent health-enhancing combination. Honey also has phytonutrients and phytochemicals that are immediately bioavailable.
And how did you get involved with raw honey?
A good question. My career path has kind of taken a circuitous route. I've always been interested in nature, sustainable development, sustainability. I studied ecological economics.
You have a master's degree, do you not?
Master's in business at UCLA.
And you also went to Brown?
Correct, and studied ecological economics there, as well as a whole host of interdisciplinary
ecological
studies.
economics. So you understand the what's involved here with a clean environment. This is your subject.
Yeah, where the economic system fits in with the larger natural ecosystem. It's a subsystem of nature. It's not the system itself, which is what modern economics thinks. But I got into it. I did some work in real estate. I was interested in green building. I worked for an urban infill home builder for 5 years, doing everything from land acquisition to construction loan financing, project management, sales and marketing. The real estate market took a hit. Meanwhile, my family had been trying to recruit me for years to come work in some of the family business enterprises, and that's avocado farming. We have a 200-acre avocado farm out in Somas, California.
That sounds nice. Oh, my goodness.
We grow a lot of different varieties.
How many avocado trees can you fit on 200 acres?
Oh, too many to count. We do about 150 to 200 per acre.
How long before they mature and give you avocados?
3 years to start producing, 8 years for full maturity. And we started keeping bees to pollinate our avocados. As Miriam said, bees are responsible for 1/3, some people say up to 40% of the food that we eat, fruits, vegetables. Avocados are among them, cherries, blueberries, raspberries, melons, pumpkins, almonds. So we started keeping bees just to make sure we had adequate fruit set on the avocados, and it's just slowly grown from there to where we would go pollinate the almonds, which is kind of the big show in pollination.
Almonds?
Almonds. Without the almond pollination check, commercial beekeeping would be done immediately. Even with it pays the biggest check. It's critically important to produce almonds.
We have great almonds here in California, don't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, right. The best in the world.
Right. Yeah, I think so. We have the best in the world.
But it's a big check for beekeepers because they really, really require bees. And they wouldn't set any almonds without them. So without that, commercial beekeeping would not remain viable. Even with that check, commercial beekeeping is a very uncertain proposition. It's very tough to have a profitable enterprise.
It's like agriculture in general. It's really very tough.
Bees specifically. As Miriam said, colony collapse disorder. Every year when you lose 30 to 40% of your colonies, it makes it very difficult.
It would seem, yes, obviously it would be tough, yeah.
So we started expanding, and we started making honey, and now we have a commercial beekeeping operation, which I manage, and we have 2 full-time beekeepers. The lead field guy is a 4th-generation beekeeper. His whole family, his cousins, his uncles, grandfather, they know bees. They're some of the best beekeepers in California, and they work with me in our operation. We have today about 850 hives. Without colony collapse disorder, we probably have 2,000 to 3,000 hives.
Wow. And
we started producing different honeys. And I launched this Bloom brand, Bloom Honey, pure raw honey, unfiltered, unpasteurized, straight from the bees. Launched it in May 2013. And we focus on single floral varietals. So we'll move our bees to a particular crop or plant that happens to be flowering, that may need pollination, or if they don't need pollination, they produce a lot of nectar. And we collect the honey from those crops, extract it, move them to the next source of nectar and pollen. And so currently we have 9 different varietals of single floral varietal honey.
You have mesquite, is that right?
Mesquite is probably my new personal favorite, although people ask me what my favorite is all the time. And I say I really have to come up with a better answer because I love them all. It depends on my mood.
And mesquite is a little tree, a little shrub. What is mesquite?
Mesquite is a tree. We make this honey in South Arizona, south of Tucson in the Sonoran Desert. You can see it's right here. It's a white honey. It's very creamy. It tastes amazing. But all of our honey tastes amazing. So,
And what other varieties do you have? Now, mesquite honey that's pretty exotic. What else have you got?
white clover made in the
White clover.
Colorado Rocky Mountains.
From white clover, little plants.
White clover plants, exactly. And while we're in Colorado, we make clover. We also pollinate canola.
Oh, I see.
Separate bees. They go on at the same time. We have orange blossom honey, which is made locally out in Ventura County. We have avocado honey made on and around our farm in Somas, Ventura County. We have a California buckwheat honey, which is made in the hills of Malibu, Thousand Oaks, Agoura, although it's prevalent all throughout California.
Okay, now, since you're an expert on honey, now buckwheat honey is darker than most honey, is it not?
Correct.
Why is it darker?
That's just a natural variation. Different plants produce different nectars. All the variations in our honey between the different varietals in texture, taste, and color come from natural variations in the nectar that are produced by different floral sources.
Is buckwheat honey richer in minerals than other honeys?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Typically, the darker the honey, the higher the mineral content, sometimes the higher the antioxidant content.
I see.
Although there are exceptions. For example, orange blossom honey, which is a light honey, comes from oranges. Oranges are high in antioxidants. So there's a lot of antioxidants in that honey as well. All raw honey has the full range of benefits. Certain honeys have other specific benefits, such as buckwheat, for example, which is also, there have been studies showing it's more effective than over-the-counter cough medicine that has dextromorphan in
Really?
it for coughs and
that's
sore
nice.
throats.
And okay, no, so let's say you're sick, you have a bad cold. How do you use the buckwheat honey? What you just as first person experience, you're not prescribing. So you tell me what you did if you had a cold.
Well, what I would do, and it wouldn't always be buckwheat, I might switch it up, but I do hot water, mix in a heaping spoonful of buckwheat honey, dash of lemon, squeeze lemon juice in there. That's if I have a sore throat, a cold, a flu type thing.
And that's an ancient remedy if I've ever heard one.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Raw honey has been used since the beginning of agricultural civilization.
Yes, I think that's actually accurate. Yes, I think
10,000 years. You know, in the ancient Greek Olympics, they used raw honey to power them through the Olympics.
I see.
It's been used by every culture throughout the world
Now,
for millennia.
when you buy, for example, in this is the mesquite honey. This is a 3-pounder or 5-pounder.
3-pounder.
I notice on the top there's a little bit of stuff which is sometimes called cappings. What exactly is that?
Do you mean the shrink wrap, or you mean
the inside the honey?
Natural variations in the honey. It could be crystallization.
Is that also propolis? Or do you skim off the propolis?
No, there is propolis and small amounts of wax, as well as bee pollen in the honey.
Right.
We gently strain the honey. We basically remove bee parts or parts of wood that break off from the frames.
Right. You have to do a little straining, don't you? Yeah.
We use a 400 micron strainer. Bee pollen granules can be between 2 microns and up to 200 microns. So using a 400 micron strainer, we let it all through. I mean, you'll see if you hold up our jar and look at the bottom, you'll see specks and this and that. We really are different from most honey companies and even some raw honey companies in we want the absolute minimal processing possible. We want the honey straight from the hive, and we focus on the health benefits of honey.
Now, besides using honey for cold or flu or something, or sinus headache, is it true, I'm just asking this, I was told that in the Tsar's army in the First World War, before they had antibiotics, obviously they didn't have antibiotics, and if they didn't have antiseptic and there was a wound on the field, they would dress the wound in honey because it was sterile. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Honey is a potent antibacterial disinfectant. Honey never goes bad.
Right. So as I could buy this jar of honey, and not only in 2 years from now or 5 years from now, but in a century from now, theoretically the honey is still good. Is that correct?
5,000 years from now.
Right. That's what
They found honey in the tomb of an Egyptian pharaoh. It's good to go. Who's got a spoon? Let's eat it.
It's amazing. That's quite remarkable.
It's amazing. And in terms of wounds...
So this raw honey just doesn't deteriorate. Now, I have to keep it in a cool spot in the house, right?
Shelf stable. Don't put it in your refrigerator unless you
shelf
want it to
stable,
crystallize more rapidly. Keep it on your shelf.
So now, because this honey has such great... This is raw honey, the Bloom raw honey, has such great shelf life. So really, there's no reason why we should eat pasteurized honey, there's no benefit for us.
Never.
And the consumer is kind of cheated when they eat pasteurized honey because you lose all the food value.
Absolutely. Josh, per capita in the U.S., Americans consume over 170 pounds of sweeteners per year.
Yes,
that's high fructose corn syrup, that's table sugar, etc. We consume 1.3 pounds of honey per year out of 170 pounds. And of that 1.3 pounds, probably 90% it shares the same name, honey, but it's not honey. It's apples and oranges.
It is apples and oranges, and I think you're right. So you're saying that in your opinion, there's room for remarkable growth in the raw honey market, is there not?
Oh, absolutely. It takes an education process. One thing that I have to educate folks on is raw honey will crystallize. If you have a
Which
jar
is not
of
a
honey,
bad thing.
It is not a bad thing.
Right.
Everyone listen up. Your honey is not bad.
Right.
It's actually good. It's a sign that your honey has not been overheated and that the nutritional benefits are intact. So you want that. Now, if you prefer liquid honey, you prefer it more easily mixable in whatever you're using it for, you can easily reliquefy the jar, take some water, put it in a pot, heat it up, not to boiling, but hot. I put everything in glass jars, not plastic, where chemicals can leach
Glass
out.
is better, isn't it? It's better, yeah, it's better.
And you put the glass jar in the hot water, turn off the flame, come back. If it hasn't liquefied, you could go hotter. But as long as the internal temperature of the honey stays below 120 degrees, it's still considered raw. And when we heat our honey, because we extract the honey, we put it into drums, it will crystallize there. So we have to liquefy it to get into the bottle. We don't go above 110. And we bring it up to 110 and then immediately back down to 95 to 98, which is the natural temperature of the honey inside the beehive.
Oh, I did not know. 95 to 98.
93 to 98. It can get up to 118 on a summer day. And that's why they say raw honey is 120 or less. Some folks say enzyme degradation may occur less than 120, which is why we go right up to 110 and then back down so it's liquid and we bottle it from there. The impact on the honey is not just the absolute temperature, but the duration you keep it at that temperature. So if you went to 120 and kept it there for 3 days, that's a lot different than if you went to 120 and brought it immediately back down.
I see.
But we don't even go to 120. We stay well below that.
And you mentioned that you have about 850 hives. How much honey will a hive give me?
That all depends. Honey production is down overall. Here in Southern California, we're in an extreme drought right now. 2013, we had downtown.
A drought of water?
Drought of water.
Oh,
and water
I did not know
helps
that.
plants produce nectar,
Right.
helps produce honey. Downtown LA had a little over 3 inches last year. Our historical average is 15 or so. We made 22% of the average. The year before was dry. And here we are, January 7th. We've had a few light drizzles, but nothing to speak of. So the prospects of making any new sage honey this year, which is a popular local varietal, are almost nil. The prospect of making new California buckwheat honey, not going to happen. Avocado and orange, we probably will make because those are irrigated crops. We go to Colorado in the summer. We make clover honey. Try to make chamisa honey. We didn't make any.
What kind of honey?
It's called chamisa. It comes from a plant called golden rabbit brush. And chamisa.
Golden rabbit brush.
It's a bright yellow flower.
Uh-huh.
Chamisa is a Native American name for it and has a whole host of medicinal properties. A lot of these honeys we make, including the mesquite, the chamisa, several others, have been used by traditional or native cultures for centuries for various medicinal purposes. Either that or we make the honey from a superfood, such as avocado, blackberry, oranges, saw palmetto honey, which we make in Florida. All of those are superfoods.
If honey stays fresh for a very long time, can it preserve foods or not?
I don't know if it can preserve foods.
So it's not really used as a preservative. I mean, they don't use it traditionally in the culture to preserve anything.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know, though. And back to your question about honey production, a good honey flow can produce 100 pounds of honey. In the old days, 200 pounds of honey.
When things were before the pesticides, if that was the origin of the problem for hive collapse, you could produce 200 pounds of honey in one colony.
In one colony per year or even on a honey flow. And that's not just pesticides. That has to do with climate change, rain,
A lot of factors, right?
Lack of, more development, less honey-producing plants.
Right.
The last few years in Colorado, we've done significantly less than 100 pounds per hive, but we also do several different honey flows per year. We'll go to avocados and make avocado honey. We'll be in the Malibu foothills making our Malibu wildflower honey. We'll be on orange groves making orange honey. Then we move to Colorado and we make the white clover honey.
You literally do this. You travel around like this?
I've got my beekeepers.
Oh, beekeepers.
I've full-time beekeepers, 2 of them.
Oh, that sounds kind of exciting lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, I go check on the bees, and we meet with them at least once a week, and because I need to manage the operation, get pollination contracts.
What about in some honeys or in the hive, there's honeycomb. Do you work with honeycomb in any way?
Well, honeycomb is in every hive. That's the bees build it using wax, and that's where they raise their young from egg to larva to pupa. They hatch out of there. They also use the comb to store pollen and to store honey. You can do comb honey. We don't do that as of yet. You need to use specialized frames.
Does it destroy the hive?
No, it doesn't, because usually they store the honey in a separate box. You've got your brood chamber, where most of the bees are, and then you put what's called supers, which are extra boxes on top of the main colony. Oftentimes you'll put a queen excluder to keep the queen from going up there so she won't lay eggs up there. So you make sure you don't have any young bees and larvae mixed in your honey. It's just honey up there.
I see, okay.
So all you have to do is have a special frame that's, you can kind of cut out the comb and then you put it in the honey.
And honeycomb is, it's good to eat, or it's like eating honey with comb, is that it?
Well, the honey is raw honey, and then the comb has health benefits as well. It's wax.
And it's kind of fun to eat honeycomb, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little chewy. It tastes pretty good.
Like gum or something. You're eating something.
Yeah. But you don't need it. The main takeaway is if you're in the market for honey, you want to get raw honey.
Right.
So you want to know your source. Consider Bloom Honey. I'd be honored, but just make sure it's raw. Make sure it hasn't been heated above 120. Ask them how they filter it.
And do you find also that chefs at various restaurants who are not necessarily interested in organic or wellness feel that the raw honeys, that your Bloom honeys just have more bouquet, and they'd rather work with them in their recipes because obviously the patrons love the taste better?
Yeah, Bloom honey has been just enormously well received. There's 2 different kinds of honey in general: wildflower honey, which is a mix of all sorts of different nectar sources,
right,
and single floral varietal honey. We have one wildflower honey now, which is a Malibu wild. We go to the foothills of Malibu. That one has sumac, buckthorn, mustards, a little bit of sage, a diverse panoply of nectar sources. But single floral varietals are held in higher regard. They have very unique tastes. And we have 9 different varietals. You could try all 9 and taste the difference. So chefs would prefer single floral varietals rather than a wildflower honey, if they're a gourmet chef, for sure.
And where can we buy the Bloom honey?
Bloomhoney.com. And for your listeners, for the next week, I'm offering 10% off. Use promo code TOYOURHEALTH, all lowercase. We're also in a bunch of retail stores: the Lassen's chain, Air One, Sun Life Organics.
Good stores all.
Monsieur Marcel at the Grove in Beverly Hills.
Which one?
Monsieur Marcel. It's a gourmet.
I know of that shop as well. Yes.
They really enjoy our new 8-ounce jars, and they're flying. We're also at the Westlake Village Farmers Market. We started about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I hope to get into many more farmers markets all throughout Los Angeles as we move forward. There's a bunch of other retail stores. You could check them out on our website. We have them all listed, and a few new ones coming up as well.
Well, Dave Jepson, it's been a pleasure having you on Here's to Your Health. I wish you great success with Bloom Honey. You are a very knowledgeable spokesperson on your subject, and I think raw honey is a very good food for us, and as medicine and as food, it's fun, it's good for us, and good fortune.
Thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate the time.
It's been fun. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bey back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bey Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bey Show, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello world, how you living? This is D. Brex, your host of the all-new rap project here on LA Talk Live. That's LATalkLive.com. Or you can find me on iTunes Radio in the R&B section. That's the Rap Project, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's Wednesdays at 7 p.m. West Coast time, so don't be late. On the Rap Project, I will be playing the very best of rap and hip-hop that goes beyond the ordinary. So connect with me, your host, D-Brax, the rap connoisseur, on the Rap Project every Wednesday at 7, right here on LATalkLive.com, where we are more than just talk.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My next guest is Natalie from Rise Bar. Rise Bar is an excellent little snack bar, clean ingredients, sold here in Southern California and probably around the country. Natalie, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you.
So tell me, what is in Rise Bar and why does it taste so good?
Well, we have a line of 14 bars, actually, and what's great about them is that we have breakfast bars, energy bars, and protein bars, great for any time of the day.
Let's talk about your protein bars. What's in them?
Sure. Currently, we have 4 of them. All of them have 5 or less ingredients, 3 to 5 ingredients, and 15 to 20 grams of protein.
Per bar?
Per bar.
15 to 20 grams is like plenty for a meal.
Plenty. Plenty for a meal or post-workout. I love them for breakfast on the go.
And what's the protein source?
We actually have 2 sources. We have the whey protein isolate.
Whey protein isolate.
And then for our vegan fans, we have a pea-based protein.
And the pea protein has been very popular the past couple of years.
That's right.
Why is that? Just well absorbed?
It's great. It's like I said, for our vegan fans that sometimes have a little bit of digestion issues. It's a nice alternative. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some people have problems. They don't do good on dairy products.
Mm-hmm. What's great about our bars is that we don't have any of the top 3 common allergens in the United States. We don't have any soy, gluten, or peanuts in any of our bars.
So you're saying that soy and gluten and peanuts are
common allergens.
Pretty common, right?
Yeah. All our bars are non-GMO as well.
What's GMO mean?
Genetically modified organism.
Yours are non-GMO.
Non-GMO, yes, and all of our bars are gluten-free. So they're just easy to eat any time of the day.
And what's the origin of Rise Bar? How long have you guys been around?
About 10 years. The bars have been around for 10 years, and as Rise Bar with the new name for about 3 years.
Yeah, I've noticed them for a long time, and I've always noticed that they have very, I use the word clean ingredients. A lot of sports bars, in my opinion, they might be good tasting. I'm not saying they're not good tasting, but they don't really have great ingredients. But the Rise bars all have very careful, good ingredients.
Right. We don't use any added sugars. Any of the sugars in our bars are from the fruits and honey. They're naturally. No sugar coating or chocolate, anything with caffeine. It's just really clean, easy to digest. Great for breakfast, in between meals, or after workout. Really a great product. We're really happy with them.
And on the Rise bar, so I need to keep these in a cool spot. I can't leave them in the car, right? If I leave them in the car, they fall apart.
Well, I've actually left the almond honey, our top seller, in the car, and it's delicious warm.
Oh, really? Right. Well, that sounds pretty good, yeah. And so I could take one. I could eat it at work.
Yeah, definitely. I leave one in my gym bag. I leave one in the car. Anywhere I go, it's just an easy snack. Like I said, the almond honey, just 3 ingredients: almonds, honey, and whey protein isolate. So there's no preservatives. So they have about a shelf life of about a year.
Well, they are good for a year. That's a very long time.
Yeah, so it's a good time it's always a good time to stock up and
the whole idea of just a few ingredients is really. That's really the way to go, I think. Actually, it's really the way to go.
Yeah, we let the ingredients really speak for themselves that way, so you can taste.
And who's the formulator of these Rise bars? What's the genesis of the Rise bar company?
Well, it was formerly Boomy Bar, so we had.
It was Boomy Bar, right? I remember it was Boomy Bar, right?
So, but right now, our team, we have a small but mighty team based in Irvine, California. Our bars are made on site, so we don't share a facility with any other products that may contain soy or gluten, so we can guarantee a very clean bar that way as well. Quality control is, just very.
So you're saying that you have your own facility? Oh, that's very nice to not know that, because a lot of bar companies now, they borrow someone else's facility and they put their label on it. There's nothing wrong with that, but you guys have your own facility. Oh, good for you.
Our very own. So yeah, we have plans of coming out with new bars. Protein bars are very popular, especially right now. So we just launched the lemon cashew and the sunflower cinnamon with the vegan protein source, and they've been doing great.
And again, the pea protein, how much protein per bar?
For the vegan protein bars, they're 15 grams of protein.
Which actually, by way of perspective, in one large egg you get 6 grams of protein. So it's like eating 2.5 eggs that's plenty.
Oh yeah, it fills you up and keeps you satisfied for some time. So they're a great choice for breakfast or after a workout.
That's great. And where can I buy these Rise bars?
Locally, you can find them at Whole Foods, Sprouts, Mother's, Jimbo's, Bristol Farms.
Oh, everywhere, in other words. That's good. Good. Everywhere.
Yeah, nationwide Whole Foods. But you can always find us online at our web store or Amazon.com.
And on the protein bars, both the whey protein and the pea protein, do they retail for the same price?
Yes.
Which is how much, roughly?
To about $250, $270 in between there.
Yeah,
depending on the
retailer.
retailer.
That seems like a very good deal.
Yeah, they are.
And once again, so give me a web address so people can maybe, if they want to go to your website.
Sure. Check out risebar.com. And you can order directly through us for the freshest bars. Or, like I said, you could always go to our retailers.
That sounds great. Well, Natalie, listen, it's been fun. Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hello, this is Angela DeJoseph. Join me Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific for the Angela DeJoseph Show. Join me as we venture into health, wealth. We're going to give you news, interviews, and entertainment. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, TiVo Radio, and now live on Facebook. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hey y'all, I'm Shaquem Williams and I'm the host of The Shock Factor here on LA Talk Live. We broadcast to the world every Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Live music, live performances, we're just live. Chef Momo, Life MC, Diana, and once again your host Shaquem Williams. So come join us every Friday here at LA Talk Live, the world-leading broadcasting internet radio station. The Shock Factor. The Shock Factor. Join us on The Shock Factor.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our show, GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio. Join us as we celebrate Christians around the world in all genres of entertainment, as well as highlight interest stories on men and women who are making a difference and impacting their community. So don't forget to tune in to GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes under R&B or watch us live on Ustream TV. We are reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio on LATalkLive.com. We're more than just talk. We're heaven's party here on earth.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on LATalkLive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Young Connection, your one-stop connection for all your graphic design and commercial printing needs. Young Connection is a full-service printing and media design company dedicated to providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction. Young Connection provides swift response and rapid turnaround services for banners, brochures, business cards, letterheads, church bulletins, funeral programs, flyers, logo design, posters, and much, much more, all at an affordable price. Young Connection, the official printing company of LA Talk Live. Give them a call at 310-491-3336. That's 310-491-3336, or visit their website at www.youngconnection.com. That's www.youngconnection.com. Young Connection Printing and Media Services, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane, or at least one of the hosts. The other host of Here's to Your Health is Dr. Hans Kugler, Ph.D. Dr. Kugler is a graduate of Stony Brook, Ph.D. in chemistry. Just came back from the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine in Las Vegas at the Venetian about a month ago, and we are going to give you, my listening audience, the highlights of that important show. Hans, welcome to Here's to Your Health again.
Well, and we are definitely more than just talk.
We're more than just talk. Especially when you're on, it's definitely more than just talk. Now,
even good jokes.
Now, I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just by way of perspective for the audience, did you write your first book on anti-aging, was it 1971?
Something like that, yeah.
So
Slowing down the aging process.
So then, now, anti-aging is something that a lot of people talk about now. It's an important and valid buzzword, but you've been writing about it since you were like the first guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Then I'm referred to as I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger's kid brother, or Jack LaLanne's kid brother,
That's good.
Or the first guy who brought anti-aging, to the general public with my book, Slowing Down the Aging Process, and so on and so on. And I am very proud to say that book was written when I was teaching as professor of chemistry at Roosevelt University in Chicago. I was teaching the pre-meds. And I had a very good connection with Professor Robert Mendelsohn, right, from Illinois University Medicine, the guy who wrote a book, How to Have Children in Spite of Your Doctor. Right?
Robert Mendelsohn, that's right. Mendelsohn, right?
Right, and a lot of other very famous people in this field.
So you've been doing this. You really are one of the important pioneers of the field, and you continue to feel that the subject has merit, and you continue to report on and also investigate these ideas. So since you were just at the show in the Venetian, which I remember you telling me was very, very well attended.
Amazing.
What are some of the ideas that you've just learned that you think this is important?
Okay, one of the most basic things here are that more and more compounding pharmacies are getting into this field, right? Because, see, orthodox medicine, they serve you drugs that are, excuse the language, not very impressive in my opinion, right? I mean, they just, disease management, nobody tries to look for real cures, and so on and so on. That's pretty well established.
So you're saying that most pharmaceuticals, it is really disease management. That's a fair criticism.
Right.
They're not really looking for cures, as you just said.
That's
They're just kind of keep you on a certain med. So what is the anti-aging group? What is their thrust?
Finding real cures.
All right.
American Academy Anti-Aging Medicine, the AFOM congresses, Dr. Ronald Klutz, very determined, stubborn. I mean, I like this guy, I mean, the whole orthodox medicine can be trying to get him off the air. No, he's going to be there, and he has the facts to do so. Right? And many years ago when we founded, right around the time when I wrote my first book, when we founded the International Academy Anti-Aging Medicine, Dr. Ron Klutz founded the American Academy Anti-Aging Medicine, Dr. Murray Susser, the ACAM, the American College for Advancement in Medicine.
Murray Susser is still a colleague of yours today, is he not?
Yes. Murray is around here in this area. I see him every few weeks, right? Very determined guy. Well, why? Also, he's a former jet pilot.
Oh, Murray is, I think.
Yes, you're from jet pilot. We went flying together, and I mean, he showed me that he can use some of those tricks still, Good. It's really interesting, yeah. Well, anyway, but the key point was, at this time, instead of being competing organizations, we all got together and we said, no, we've really got to sponsor one group to grow, right? And we decided, or let's say in my case, I decided on the American Academy Anti-Aging Medicine, right? Because at this time I was a senior science advisor with the big vitamin company, Girovita International. And we had a magazine called the Journal of Longevity. We gave them free advertising. We promoted their ideas because it was just good ideas, right? I mean, it was really common sense thing to do. And they grew rapidly. And they are now, like, for example, at the last meeting, I think there were at least 3,000 attendees there. The exhibition floor was just unbelievable, amazing. We touched onto it during the last show, and I have a few more other, let's say, new things. And what I look for when I go there is what's really new. I mean, what's important. What's really important for me or for the average person out there, right? That really wants to get into into anti-aging medicine, right? And these congresses there are basically, number one, a tremendous series of lectures on every level anti-aging. And then they also have segments where doctors attend symposiums where they are getting certified in special areas. For example, new treatments of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and this and that. They actually have to attend several days of meetings, morning to night. They take exams and so on and so on. And that's really magnificent. And that's actually where So
you're acting as a certifying agency?
Yes, they do. They are certified to do that.
Are you attracting MDs who are interested in your ideas?
Oh, totally. Because, see, the bottom line, I think, is that doctors really want to be doctors to help people, right? It is just our system that it's just messed it up. It's just money, and drugs. And when they recognize it, I mean, they will go along the lines of common sense, logic, and science. And that's where we are, right? I mean, this is absolutely magnificent. Well, okay, so we said the compounding pharmacies, right? Now, they are really compounding drugs, making drugs and formulas that are actually natural substances and that are help greatly in reversing diseases, treating diseases, and really leading some good results, right? I mean, the overall general approach, because we have a little bit time here, when you follow an anti-aging approach, you're new to this field. Where do you start?
Right.
I mean, you just pop some vitamins or this and that. No, it doesn't really work. The very first thing is the foundation. The foundation is lifestyles and health practices, right?
Lifestyles and health practices.
Right. And we used to say exercise, nutrition, and so on. No, it's not that anymore. It's called exercise. Detoxing is the number 2 priority, right? Because we have so and so many toxic chemicals in our body. And the FASE, Foundation for Advancement in Science and Education, a branch of Narconon in the in the Los Angeles area, they demonstrated that we are right on the right track, right along those lines. And they also developed a detox method, and that is using non-flushing niacinamide, about 1.5 grams. Then you do some exercise, and then you sit in the sauna and sweat. So what they did at first, they actually take biopsies of adipose tissue, fat tissue of people as we get older, and they demonstrate that as we get older, we have more and more of those toxic chemicals in our body. Mm-hmm. That's established. As a matter of fact, some of them 50 to 100. And they all affect endocrine system, our immune system, called premature puberty in girls, for example, down to age 7, smaller penises in boys. I mean, affects everything. I mean, it's disgusting, really, what's going on.
Is this a worldwide problem?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It definitely is, right? And so in looking at that point, I would say, for some people, that's actually number 1 in importance, right? Mm-hmm. And then they also demonstrated that after they do some exercise and take the niacin, actually, before they do this, they put a little spots on anywhere on your body, a gauze, with an aluminum foil over the cast and also over the forehead, and they demonstrated that proportionally to what you have in terms of toxic chemicals in your body, they come out when you induce that sweating.
I see.
Right. And so estimated within 6 weeks, doing this about twice a week, you dump about 2/3 of those toxic chemicals from your body.
Oh, that seems positive.
Oh, it's absolutely magnificent, so, right?
The 1,500 milligrams of non-flush niacin.
Yeah.
Exercise, and then the sauna.
Yes.
Twice a week.
Right.
And that seems very doable.
Right. And very interesting, fascinating, right? I mean, I think I talked about this before. Many years ago, I had a German-Russian wrestler who was sent to our health center, to our MDs. He had over 150 spots, cancer all over his body, prostate cancer metastasized, right? And he followed that approach, enhancing immune functions, detoxing, and so on and so on. And we used the non-flushing niacin, right, niacinamide. And after 6 months, he was 85% reversed. Then he got better and better and better. Well, we all blamed it on the detoxing. Well, guess what? Nowadays, we find, and that's very interesting, Vasirio, Stanford University, they published some data showing that niacinamide is possibly a very important compound in normalizing immune functions in your body or preventing P53 gene that we have in there to actually cause cancer. It can possibly prevent that.
No kidding.
Yes,
Oh, my
I'll have
goodness.
more about that. I'm
Wow.
communicating with those people, and I did a literature search. It's really very interesting, right?
Excuse me. So at this juncture, is the niacinamide the same as no flush niacin, or are they separate?
No, as a
substances?
matter of fact, they believe that it's specifically the niacinamide that does that.
That's better.
That's the positive part, right? Now, we
That's
have niacinamide, niacin hexanicotinate. For detoxing, they're both very good, right? Okay, so, but the important part here in respect to possibly preventing cancer, keeping your immune system strong, it's the niacinamide. Now, we will talk about this a little bit more sometime in the future, but it's really a very interesting factor that comes in here, right?
Wow.
Okay, so we had compounding pharmacies that make a lot of different things. And why? Well, after the very first layer, which is health practices, lifestyle, and every week we probably find some publications that redefines this and makes it more perfect, that approach. Well, after that, the next layer up is actually hormone replacement. And again, hormone replacement is something what Orthodox medicine does not like. Actually, they had a witch hunt going on against doctors who were practicing hormone replacement, and it was only a magnificently written whole, I think it was about 24 pages long, documentation how important that hormone replacement is and why it's important and so on and so on. And guess what? Some of the biggest support comes from Harvard University.
Well, that's always good to have them on your side.
Orthodox medicine then shuts up, right, when it comes
That's
to that, right? And that was, for example, with a Dr. Abraham Morgentaler. Right. Like, for example, when it comes to hormones and, man aging goes to the doctor, hey, testosterone is basically known as the feel-good hormone. How about giving me some testosterone? And the doctor used to say, well, estrogen is associated with a higher prostate risk and so on. No, that's what Abraham Morgentaler, Harvard, documented, published, wrote in a book, Testosterone for Life. He showed that the highest risk of prostate cancer is not associated with a higher risk of testosterone, actually with a lower risk of testosterone. Okay? Now, and since we're in this subject, when you take testosterone, testosterone metabolized to different types of other hormones, and one of them is actually an estrogen, right? Estradiol. Now, you want to keep that estradiol down, and therefore you take DIM, D-I-M, diindolyl methane. You people out there, you can just go to a good health food store, and you can find DIM in there. It's relatively simple. You take one tablet every day, and so it's fine. Now,
and the DIM does what?
Right. It keeps the estradiol in range. It brings it down to a normal acceptable range, right? Now, there's also in this area, Douglas Laboratory, right? Douglas Laboratory has been one of the companies that make absolutely magnificent quality products, right? Vitamins and so on and so on. And they've recently came out with a enhanced DIM. That is even better than the standard DMN. And if you want to know a little bit more about it, you go to www.douglaslabs.com. Sure. Right? And you can find out about that.
And as I understand it, women who are, say, in their 40s or 50s going through menopause will take DIM to successfully and safely minimize menopausal symptoms, hot flashing, weight gain, hair loss, sleeplessness, any of those symptoms, but the DIM works very well for those women.
Totally, absolutely, right. But there's also with women, instead of just going with a horse urine extract, there are many different types of estrogen that have to be considered. And that's, again, what A4M does at the certifications, right, for the doctors. I mean, there's 5 or 6 different levels of hormones that have to be analyzed in the blood and so on and so on. And special laboratories come around to do that. And so that's really a very, very basic and a very effective approach. And, okay, so we have the basics, lifestyle and so on. And we define what can be done. And in exercise, for example, we go to a much newer and better approach, exercising. As a matter of fact, the old type of exercise, go to the gym, sit on your bicycle for half an hour for cardiovascular and do some other exercise, is totally out, right? As a matter of fact, nowadays, you can get away with half the exercise and get twice the results. Right?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Jack Wilmore from Texas University, one of the exercise gurus.
Who is it?
Jack Wilmore.
Okay.
He's Texas University. He reviewed the new, what's called super circuit exercise, and said we are getting results beyond belief in terms of weight loss, fitness, body shaping. I mean, it is just amazing. So you can get away with 2 sessions per week. Now, there's so many people out there, self-appointed experts. Oh, you have to do an hour of exercise every day. Oh, come on, give me a break. There's no science behind that stuff, right? And I mean, when I go to the gym, you walk in the door, enjoy your workout. I feel like saying, are you crazy? The best thing is when I walk out of here. But I'm a part-time masochist, you know, so I do it. When I walk out of it, I feel good. The next day, I feel even better, right?
Right.
And in my age, you know, very recently, I was classified as high-performing athlete, right? Or maybe especially after I had all my heart problems.
Now, the high-performing athlete, that was given to you by who?
Well, you do this with an analysis of your heart function.
This is what the MDs do.
Well, everybody, actually, it's a very standard procedure.
No,
right?
but the high-performing athlete, now you seem very happy to have gotten that moniker, if I'm using the correct term, but do you go to your physician's office and they give you that determination?
Yeah, they do this.
So they do what, a stress test on you?
Some of them do it, or they send you to a colleague in the same building. I mean, it's relatively simple, right? You lay there and they do that test, takes about 20 minutes. It's relatively simple. And it measures, you know, from your heart, you have the upper left atrium. Then you have the type of rhythm that you're in. Sinus is normal. Atrial fibrillation and others are abnormal rhythms. And again, you go into, I mean, if you really evaluate what orthodox medicine is, recently you've seen 2-page ads for a drug. Oh, how to better deal with your atrial fibrillation. What a nonsense. I mean, there's at USC and in many universities, USC is actually the genius in there. Professor Kunlavi Nadmani. He is actually from Thailand originally. He's a little genius. He is the one who originally developed the method where they go into your leg vein with a laser up into your heart, and they knock out the shorts when you have atrial fibrillation. And I had that, right? And then you wake up and you look at the screen and it's totally normal sinus. I would say I was ready to kiss that screen, you know. I mean, not exactly the professor, but he's a hell of a nice guy. You know, I mean, he's really very open-minded. So instead of, again, finding real cures for that to bring atrial fibrillation back to normal, all it's 2 pages in the LA Times and major newspapers about this drug, you know, oh, there's a better drug to deal with atrial fibrillation. What a nonsense, right? Anyway, so you have many different levels, right? So we have the basic lifestyles, exercise, and so on and so on, and how
also
to exercise.
Now, on exercise, years ago, wellness guys such as yourself spoke about the importance of exercise, but people said, okay, yes, they're right, but exercise is just a perk. But you always like to mention on the air that exercise is not a perk; it's essential and easy to implement for good health.
Totally.
Right.
Totally. I mean, I've mentioned this before once. At Roosevelt University in Chicago, we did longevity studies with cancer-prone animals. They get cancer at the same rate as humans do, percentage-wise in their lifespan. We put animals in all the wrong conditions and all the right conditions. The right conditions, exercise, right? We exercise them 3 times a week. And we got close to 100% difference in average lifespans. Now, that's applying all the different variables that we know. Interestingly enough, when you repeat the same experiment without the exercise, everything drops by 50%. 50% the exercise, and only twice a week you have to do something, as long a third session involves anything aerobic. I mean, take your girlfriend, your wife, your dog, your cat, whatever you want, you know, take them for a long walk. That's all what it needs, right? And it's done, right? So you have the foundation, health practices, you have hormone replacement, and then you go into specialty areas. That is really how to apply the variable, the anti-aging modalities correctly. Because if you don't apply them correctly, you can actually get to the point, like I did the study, which I presented at American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, 30 people who came to me, Hans, I'm doing everything right. I'm exercise, nutrition, and supplements, and this, and I'm feeling so miserable. Like work faster, aging sucks, right? And so when you evaluate that, I mean, it's a very simple mistake. When you do testosterone, you have to do it on and off cycling for about 9 days. When you do growth hormone, the cycling is about 4 days on and off. With many other areas.
Okay, so Hans, let's talk about human growth hormone first. So of course, human growth hormone by definition is an injectable, correct?
Right.
So, and you have experience using the injectable. You're familiar with the protocol.
Right. I mean, I get the feedback. I get together with a number of doctors in our area using it. It's totally safe. It's totally magnificent, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, and you're saying there's a 9-day protocol. What is that?
Well, the 9-day protocol was testosterone, right? Because, see, when you take your level of testosterone is here, that's what it should be.
Right.
So you make up the difference every day. No, it doesn't work this way. Because when you bring the testosterone up with some extra supplement, your body says, oh, I have enough. I stop making my own, and so on and so on. And so it goes downhill. And if you keep doing that, it actually leads to testicular atrophy, right? And but on the other hand, if you just cycle, you do it 9 days on, 9 days off, or something like that, better results.
Okay, so the 9 day on, 9 day off, you think that's a good protocol, the 9 and 9?
Yeah.
What about, I'm just asking this, what about the question of every other day?
No, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work?
But see, a key point with all of this, from testosterone to the HGH, human growth hormone, and some others, you have to evaluate and take into account the half-life of those substances in your body.
I see.
Right? Okay, now with growth hormone, for example, it's only 6 hours. So it actually suggests that cycling is not really necessary. However, when you really do it with people and you get the feedback, you do it 4 days on, 4 days off, they feel better. Get better results, better muscle development, they feel better, right? And you're using the same amount. Okay, now, however, we have a recent problem very recently. The manufacturers of growth hormone, they're getting so obnoxious. They raised the prices by over $160 to $200 per month.
Is that because it's so popular now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's literally everybody who's taking it, I mean, will take it, right? I mean, they will continue taking it. So they probably think, well, we can squeeze a lot more money out of those suckers and so on and so on, right? Okay, however, there comes the nice part, and I already mentioned that before once, velvet deer antler. There's a new extract, a new way of making a concentrate extracting velvet deer antler. It is a cold extract. And guess what? When you analyze the velvet deer antler, you find it contains IGF-1. Now, IGF-1 is a component that a doctor measures in the blood to determine if it's low enough to justify prescribing human growth hormone, right? Now, this is a sublingual formula. Bioproteintech.com, I think. Yeah, bioproteintech.com. That's the company.
So now, so as you, as a scientist, you like velvet deer antler, but there's a new manufacturing process that, in your opinion, gives you more of the constituent parts?
Yes.
And what's the brand you like?
Made by bioproteintech.com, right? Bioproteintech.com. They actually have 3 different concentrations, 500, I think 800 and 1500 or something like that. I use a stronger one. I use 1 little squirt from a dropper, sublingual in the morning, while I'm feeding my animals and I'm making their breakfast.
You find that, because you're in pretty good health in general, but you found that this velvet deer antler product, you really just felt better?
Yeah.
You felt just stronger? What did you feel?
Yes, more than a year ago at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, some researchers were there. They were showing the data on it, right? And they said, oh, Dr. Cooler, can we show you about something? And I thought, well, I know velvet deer antler, right? It's been used for thousands of years and so on and so on. Well, the way they used to make it is very simple. They grind it up, then they boil it. and then make a concentrate.
Right.
And that still is effective. However, the newer method is with steel balls, they're making an extremely fine grind. Then they're using an extractor, almost like, I think, red wine or something like that, and let it sit in the refrigerator at a cold temperature, cold extract, which does not destroy the fine ingredients like IGF-1 and so on and so on. And I continued that for several months, and I was really worried because instead of growth hormone, I was doing the velvet deer antler, and naturally, I was worried that if I not do the growth hormone, that I probably lose muscle mass, right?
Right.
Because it's pro-anabolic.
And also, as we get older, it's one thing to be powerful when you're 21 or 25. So, but as older men, we want to maintain mass. I mean, this is definitely we want this. We want mass. Okay, and so you were concerned by the loss of mass, especially since you had a terrible car accident when some big truck smashed into your sports car. Right.
And I lost 18 pounds of muscle in the year and a half following that, and I was down to the point where I'm walking 30 yards. I mean, it was disgusting. Let's look in the future. I'm totally back to health. I presented at medical meetings.
Were you like 73 when that happened?
I was about 68.
When you had 68.
Yeah.
And of course you had been very fit before the accident, right? You were always a very fit guy.
I was always into fitness.
You always take care of yourself, right?
But for different reasons, right? Like when I was in the Air Force, we flew jets. The key point was, if the hydraulic would go out on a jet, you had to be strong as an ox to wrestle this thing. Otherwise, there's no way. Push the button and get the heck out of there, right? And naturally, you don't really want to do that, right?
No.
I mean,
they won't give you another jet to fly for a while, is that it, if you do that?
Well, and also when you get out of this jet with the high speed and their tail is relatively high, it may cut you in half, right? I mean,
consider.
There's a lot of ways to stay in there, right?
Gotcha. Okay, better to stay in there. Okay.
Anyway,
I did not know that, by the way.
So
Thank you.
all this is going in the right direction, and we're very happy, and everything is really fine. And using the velvet deer antler instead of the growth hormone, I was worried that I would lose muscle, and so maybe I paid a little bit more attention to it, especially with protein intake and so on. Guess what? I actually gained 2 pounds of muscle over a 3-month period, right? And I'm okay.
And where'd that muscle go? Was it arms and chest? Could you really notice?
Well, no, wait. Body analysis.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, and so we're fine along those lines. I still think with everything that I do, I'm back to using a little bit of growth hormone, but mostly the deer antler, and I'm cycling on and off and on and off. Right, that cycling is extremely important in everything in health. Some people tell me in the morning, I meet them for breakfast, oh God, I forgot to take my vitamins. I said, relax, it's good for you. Take
a little break.
Take a little bit in the afternoon, take some more tomorrow, and you're going to be fine. Right? Okay. Right. Now, previously, we also mentioned already some excellent products with allergy research, right?
Allergy research.
Allergyresearcher.com, Dr. Stephen Levine. Right. Magnificent, have been in that business for many, many years, and Superior Source, actually it's SuperiorSource1.com. They're making the microlingual. Because, see, when you take a lot of vitamins like I do, I mean, I take a handful in the morning while I'm feeding my animals, and after breakfast I take some more, and in the evening I take some more, that can get a little bit of pain. On the other, what these people did, they'd make a very small, an extract. So that, for example, a vitamin D pill is minute, right? And they make a cinnamon extract, which is good for blood sugar homeostasis, right? And the K2 vitamins and, DHEA. It's really absolutely magnificent, right? Anyway, now, one of the key areas in respect to taking daily supplements is a substance known, that will bring nitric oxide in your body up to normal level. 3 scientists, when was it about, I don't know, do you remember? It was about 8 years ago, right, when they discovered that thing?
No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but anyway, they discovered nitric oxide is a very small molecule, nitrogen and oxygen. It's in your blood, and you can measure it. Well, now we can measure it, but they found that it is important for heart functions, blood pressure, immune functions, sexuality, etc., etc. And after the age of 40, it quickly decreases. Well, many of us, we were looking for a supplement to actually put a supplement together to bring the nitric oxide back up to normal. It didn't work. In many areas, I mean, I know some people went ahead with it in very aggressive sports, but I think they were taking some risks with the starting materials, right? When it gets unsafe, when some of the starting materials actually have a certain toxicity, then I'd rather step back and wait a little bit.
We're talking about drugs now?
Yeah, well, it almost leads to an area of drugs, right? Because it's not really natural the way to do so. So anyway, I left it alone, and about a couple of years ago, Texas University, right, with their lady Janet Zand, MD, they actually found a way to make an extract from 2 plants. It's a fruity lozenge together with some B12, and you take that, let it melt away in your mouth, and within 20 minutes you can actually use the saliva sticks that doctors are using, and you can measure, you can show that the nitric oxide increases in your body, right? And I think the website is Neogenis, neogenis.com, right? Sure. And you look for nitric oxide.
That sounds good. Hans, we'll take a short break now. We're speaking to Dr. Hans Kugler, PhD, on Here's to Your Health. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages, and we will continue our conversation with Dr. Hans Kugler. Please stay tuned.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Sequoia Neff.
And this is Jay Rios.
And I'm Sherrod Moore.
Inviting you to join us every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Battle of the Sexes as we discuss his and her views on topics no one wants to touch.
We keep it 100% real.
And interesting.
And it is pure comedy.
So don't forget to tune in to Battle of the Sexes Mondays at 7 p.m.
Exclusively on LATalkLive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and AHA Radio.
Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure.
This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Susie Pruden. And yes, you've seen me on Oprah, Good Morning America, and The Today Show. And I'm inviting you to join me every Monday from 3 to 4 for my new show, Mastermind Live. Join us as we introduce you to the new thought leaders of the world who will inspire you, support you, and guide you to your next level. So don't forget to tune into Mastermind Live exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. I continue my conversation with Dr. Hans Kugler, PhD, about the recent anti-aging convention that was held in Las Vegas about a month ago. Dr. Kugler is one of the principals in the organization and also really one of the first scientific researchers to discuss the idea of anti-aging. Dr. Kugler, welcome back.
Well, it's always a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
And in talking about the priorities if somebody starts an anti-aging program, right? It's very important to have a real professional to work with.
I think so. Someone who can really
because you can
guide
really
you.
make mistakes.
Well, you
right?
can waste a lot of time, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You waste time and money. I mean, what's the point, right? Find somebody and so on. Well, you can also buy an ebook, my book, Lifelong Health: Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age.
What's the name of your book again?
Lifelong Health: Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age. It's an ebook due to the support of a nonprofit organization. It's available for $7. You can download it to your computer and so on.
How do I get that book?
That's one. Anywhere. I mean, any one of the internet
I go to Amazon
book
or something?
supplier. Amazon
Okay.
will do it, right? Barnes and Noble.
That's your newest book on anti-aging.
Right. Yeah.
What's the title once again?
Pardon?
What's the title once again?
Okay, Lifelong Health: Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age. But Lifelong Health and my name will do it, and you'll get to it, right? Okay. Now, we talked about the essential requirements for doing a effective anti-aging approach. Lifestyle at first. The next step is the hormone replacement. And the next step then really being careful about what you're doing and that you're doing it correctly, right? And in one of those areas, we just touched on to that, I would consider probably one of the strongest and most important discoveries in anti-aging when they discovered nitric oxide, right? As a matter of fact, a few years ago, 3 researchers got the Nobel Prize for the discovery of nitric oxide. And Texas University was able to make a supplement, a fruity lozenge, totally fine, totally safe. Some people take more than 1 or 2, et cetera, and it's neogenis.com is the website, and Neo40 is the product. That's an important part. Well, in order of priorities, beyond the exercise and the lifestyle and all these things, another area that is very important in my talks, when I gave a talk about anti-aging and so on, I very often show a slide, and it shows a milk carton, it shows a yogurt container, it shows let's say a can of soda or something like this and that. What does that all have in common? And a lot of people started, guess really correctly, plastic, right? Plastic contains a harder, a BPA, bisphenol A, that leaks into the fluid or the food in the plastic container and should definitely be avoided. So you should definitely, when you get to your water, don't use plastic bottles. Stay away from that stuff, right? I mean, if we would reuse the plastic bottles, yeah, maybe after 3 or 4 uses, the risk would decrease. But in the meantime, we have some really good companies that are coming out. As a matter of fact, Castle Rock is one of them, right?
Oh, yes,
Castle Rock
yes,
water,
sure, yeah.
right? Excellent. As a matter of fact, I got some samples, right? And we actually, when you put them in a freezer, you would recognize that water crystallizes harder than regular water. I mean, it's magnificent. It's a little bit alkaline, right? And the website is castlerockwater.com. If you just put Castle Rock in there, you get something else in there. So you have to write castlerockwater.com. Okay.
By the way, I drink that water too, and I think it's great water. Makes great herbal tea. By the way, I like the water.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely magnificent. Because look, wherever you go shopping, just go in there and see where you can find anything in glass bottles. It's almost impossible, right? I mean, we have.
There is Mountain Valley, which has been around since the 19th century, and that also has a very good quality American water.
Right. Yeah. So the Castle Rock water. There's also Pellegrino from Italy,
sure,
but relatively expensive.
Yeah, and
right?
there's also Perrier that's sparkling. That's also very good.
Yeah, but Perrier very often comes in plastic
And
bottles.
Gerolsteiner. Gerolsteiner is another, and Apollinaris from Germany is another fantastic water.
Yeah.
Lovely taste, that water. Really, it's a great water.
Yeah. That is really something very important. Okay, now some newer introductions in the alternative health field, and what we look for is safety, and no side effects, and even if we do 2 or 3 times as much what they recommend, it's still fine, right? And there's one called the with the holograms. Remember, some time ago we had a young man here to talk about that.
Oh,
As a
Josh
little
Daniels, yes.
A little plastic sticker, literally. Right. See, acupuncture, and I use that a lot in my heart recovery. It's magnificent, but it's also not exactly cheap, right? I mean, if you do it literally 3 or 4 times a week, as I did, and so on. So what they did is they put in a very small sticker. Actually, when you get their information, you have about probably a dozen stickers on there. You stick them on the spot wherever there is either pain. In my situation, it's my left arm because I'm left-handed. Everything I do, I work on my house, I work on my car, everything else. Naturally, I do everything with the left hand. And then I go to the gym and my body says, what do you mean? You're already worn out that shoulders. Now you're going to do weightlifting on top of that, right? So you put a little bit sticker on there. Maybe I put a little bit plastic tape on there to keep it on there. Tremendously reduces the pain.
Wow.
Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, there's also another one for energy. There's actually 2 types for energy. And what was the other one? Pain, energy, and for sleep. Especially when you get up there in age and you have a little bit of prostate problem and you don't really want to use all these drugs, Right. I mean, if a deeper sleep is really very important, right? And Energetic Life Sciences.
Right.
Wasn't that the
website?
That
was Josh Daniels. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a new group that's forming now, right?
Right. EnergeticLifeSciences.com. It's very interesting. I mean, look it up. It's, I think, magnificent idea. See, what they do is with a hologram imprinted on the plastic actually has the same effect as an acupuncturist sticking a needle in that spot, right?
That seems impressive.
Yeah, that's really very important, And in general, again, staying up to par with what's going on in this field is important. Now, we know every website and every manufacturer has a website, and come back to us to stay up to par. But, I always worry a little bit because there's always that pressure to buy their products. Oh, this is number one, you have to do, and so on. Right. So that's why I like to go back to A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. You can subscribe to a news report every week. You get a little notice. No selling pressure, nothing. You go to worldhealth.net and you look for the bouncing red ball. And that's really interesting. You look at the whole big website and you see dozens of pieces of information. Suddenly there's a little bouncing at bang, 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 bang. Oh, that's where you subscribe. Put your email in there. Doesn't cost anything. It's designed for doctors, right? And, and you get the report every week, what's really new, what's really newly discovered.
Does your organization have an official position on what they feel the achievable lifespan is of human beings? Is there, because I don't want to sound silly, is there a number that you think most of us could make it to X?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a number?
It's interesting that you bring this up. Because I was just talking to Dr. Friedrichsen in Germany, who at Heidelberg and Tübingen University, they developed those embryonic cell extracts, right?
He's a colleague of yours for a long time.
Right. Very important. I mean, the rich and famous used to go to Germany and Switzerland for their embryonic sheep cell injections, and that was extremely effective in thymus stimulating immune functions, right? Under the sternum, we have a little organ. As we get older, that atrophies, and directly inversely proportional to the decrease of the functioning of the thymus, we have an increase in cancer. If we activate the thymus, we increase our immune functions, and that can be done with those sheep cell injections. Mm-hmm. Because that was so effective in this area, and in another area, treatment of Down syndrome children. And again, if you go to my website, drhanskugler.com, right, you will see before and after pictures of Down syndrome children. And that's also what I show when I give a presentation, because it's extremely, impressive. You take a Down syndrome child and you give them these injections from the embryonic cell extracts, and the IQ literally doubles from 40 to 80.
Wow.
The facial features normalize. And because it was so effective, this method, the Dr. Nehran cell therapy, in stimulating immune functions and in Down syndrome, so 2 universities got together. Heidelberg and Tübingen University, and Dr. Friedrichsen, a friend of mine, was one of the key researchers in that field, and they pinpointed trigger chemicals in your body. They're called low molecular weight nucleic acids, peptides, and growth factors that actually stimulate things. And you probably recall when I had my heart problem, we did everything, we put everything together, and nothing really worked, only until I included the embryonic cell extracts. I went to Germany, did this, totally back to normal, fine, in a
those
medical
were injected, those were injectables?
Yeah. And
Excuse me, now for the Down syndrome children, how old are the children that you can get this remarkable improvement?
Okay.
Are they 1 year old, 2 years old? How old?
The earlier you start, the better the results, right? I mean, if you do it with a child that's 6 or 7 years old, yeah, you get some results, but not really dramatic. But coming back to the maximum lifespan, what you were asking, there are actually 2 processes that are going on at the same time. The very first one is following the right health practices. Now, if you're not following the right health practices, you are stressing out the cells in your body. They wear out faster, and therefore they will go through a cell cycle a little bit faster. And that goes into the area of telomeres, right? In humans, we have about 54 subdivisions at the end of your DNA molecule. And every time when a cell divides, or when that mechanism is triggered, it chops off one of those subdivisions. And by the time they're all used up, and if you're doing most of the, let's say, if you're doing as much as you can right in respect to the health practices, then by the time all 54 would be used up, you come up with a maximum lifespan of about 110 to 120. Right? And that in some degree is confirmed with laboratory work, pretty strongly. I mean, there's about a dozen publications that really show that.
So 110 years to 120 years of age is a lifespan that many of us could achieve if we just follow the good ideas.
Right. Now, if you don't do that, and the cells are literally forced to go through a cycle a little bit earlier, then that maximum will decrease to whatever, maybe between 100 and 110, or maybe 90 and 95, or whatever, right? So you better focus on doing the health practices correctly, right? And then we focus on the telomeres. But the next step up, that's the exciting part. And that's really what I am doing, and what a lot of other people are doing with stem cells, right? We are trying to make, we're not really trying, we've done it already in animal experiments. We are trying to make stem cells that are equivalent to embryonic stem cells. And in order to not upset religious arguments, right? As a matter of fact, I'm very pro-religion and so on and so on, So anyway, we can do this outside the laboratory. And I think I mentioned that already. There's a gentleman, Francis Collins from NIH. He was in charge of the Human Genome Project. On his own time, he wrote a little book.
And what's the NIH?
National Institute of Health. Okay. Right? And so he, on his private time, he wrote a little booklet. The Language of God, a scientist presents evidence for belief. And it's interesting that the more we learn about the intricate mechanisms with RNA and DNA and genetic control and how all this works, the simpler it gets. And the more scientists are coming around to saying, there's a real science in that. There's logic in it. There's a real design in it, right? And that's the big argument between atheists and whatever. The atheists say it's all by accident, right? And this just cannot be by accident. It's just impossible. I mean, with the structure of the DNA molecule, the double helix, if you classify a certain segment in there as a letter, and the different letters that you can have, you can basically define the entire universe, the entire human body, everything with 4 letters. 4 letters repeating in a different sequence, and that's what's done with the DNA molecule. Right?
Okay, I don't think I'm sure I understand all that, but okay. At least you do. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's really an area that is evolving and bringing in scientists to the point where they really are more in support of the intelligent design than opposing it. Okay? Now, when we make those stem cells, we can do them via 2 mechanisms. We take a female egg cell, we remove with a very fancy equipment, and again, you can go to my website and you can see the microscopes and everything what we have. And,
what's your website again?
And if you are in the Torrance area, give me a call or let me know ahead of time and actually show you the stuff, right?
Yes, you have a laboratory at the Torrance Airport.
Right.
Give me your website right
now. Okay. drhanskugler.com. It's all one word, drhanskugler.com, and you see the equipment and the laboratory and so on. So with one of the very fancy microscopes, you remove the nucleus from that female egg cell. Then I take a nucleus, basically the DNA from one of my or your or whatever cells, and I put it into that denucleated cell, and I trigger to divide. And also, we've done some work on that, and I've some really good research results for that. And if that is effective, on day number 4, this is called the blastocyst stage. I mean, in cell divisions, we have many different stages. They all have different names. And at that blastocyst stage, in the developing mass, you have a little sac that contains stem cells. They are totally embryonic, the most pluripotent, powerful stem cells. Okay, so we again remove those stem cells away from the controlling DNA and cultivate them separately. Now, if we take those stem cells and would inject them into anybody, I mean, not anybody, the person where we made the stem cells for, right, with the right DNA, they would roll over cancer, heart disease, diabetes, unbelievable. Well, how can I say that? Because in the animal experiment, it's already been confirmed. And it's already the next step up by using, for example, an animal egg cell for that nuclear transfer. It also works. But a key point here is a key experiment. You can induce blindness in a test animal chemically. The animal doesn't see a damn thing. Now, an animal like this will mature within about 4 or 5 months. And therefore, at an earlier stage in life, you can collect from the blood stem cells. You collect some of its own stem cells. Now you induce the blindness. You take a syringe with an extremely fine needle. You go right through the lens of the eye into the retina, put the stem cells in there. Within 2 weeks, the animal sees again.
Are we talking about rabbits now?
Yeah. No, this is just the basic experiment. Now, there's even better. Now you collect...
And that's already been done?
Oh, yeah.
Totally in Germany or in the United States?
Here in the U.S. It's MIT, Harvard, Princeton. I mean, most of the big universities, they all know about this, and they work along the same lines. Okay, but it gets even better. You collect the stem cells. When this animal has reached adult stage, you induce blindness. And now you put the stem cells in like intravenous, just into the bloodstream. And guess what? The stem cells know where to go, and they're repaired. Within 2 weeks, the animal sees again.
Wow.
It's unbelievable with what's being done in this field. Okay, next step up, because again, some people are still saying, well, you're using a human egg cell and you're creating a human embryo. No, it isn't. I mean, Francis Collins in his book, The Language of God, Scientists Presents Evidence for basically says so. That is not so. That is no objection to it, and so on and so on. But we can also use an animal egg cell. For example, a bovine or a rabbit egg cell, remove the nucleus, which makes it that animal, and that is just fertile soil. Now I put my own DNA in there, and again, when you triggers to divide and you analyze the DNA, it's literally 100% the same what you got from the starting material, right? I mean, you can really design your own stem cell along those lines. Now, years ago, there was a big conference, and I spoke at this conference, and there were several different scientists presenting ideas of which way to go to make those stem cells. And because of religious arguments, a lot of researchers went with a Japanese professor, Hayakawa, who had induced a method called IPS, induced pluripotent stem cells. And in essence, I mean, it's a magnificent idea. It shows that you can take a retrovirus, you can attach a gene to it, and you can put it into that body, into that cell, and it will insert itself into the DNA. Well, but in this case here, you have to use 4 retroviruses, each with a different control gene attached to it, and you insert that into your DNA, into skin cells, for example, and they have to be all 4 in one cell. Like 3 cells or 5 or 6, it doesn't work. And so the practicality can be seen by people who really know laboratory work. And that was my strengths, right? I mean, see, at German universities, you're really being taught the practical approach. And my undergraduate work was at the University of Munich under Nobel laureate Butenandt. I mean, very aggressive, very magnanimous man. At that time, I mean, so long ago, he would emphasize, he says to all our students, he says, look at people who have stayed healthy and fit, and are not using a lot of these drugs, how they can outperform younger people and so on. I mean, magnificent, right? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, when you know these laboratory techniques, you can evaluate things. And at that time, I put myself, my name behind it, saying, no, IPS is not going to work. The nuclear transfer approach is going to work. And a lot of people disagreed with me. And whenever we have meetings, whatever. Well, guess what? 3 months ago, Oregon University made stem cells via that nuclear transfer, right? And on the other hand, the IPS induced pluripotent stem cells, when they're trying to make it, there's risk of tumors and cancers and genetic aberrations and even rejections. Mm-hmm. You make those stem cells that are supposed to be like that person's stem, you put them into your body says, what is this? Kill this thing, right? Right. And so anyway, a lot of these things are being confirmed, right? And I wrote going into a different area of that genetic control mechanisms. It's a little bit complicated, but there's an area that's known as a lock and key mechanism. Like if a cell in your body triggers, or it has to trigger because you are subjected to a virus, it has to trigger your immune system, right? It goes to the surface of a cell, and it's too big enough to go into the nucleus, so it goes to the cell surface, and there's a receptor in there. It looks like a lock, and what comes into it is like the key that fits into that lock, and when that happens, it transmits the idea to the inside of the cell, to the nucleus. It forms a copy of the nucleus to make immune cells, and so on and so on. It triggers off very nicely. Well, guess what? All the big objectors, Monsanto, the genetically food companies, and the garbage companies, et cetera, I mean, am I saying that genetically foods are garbage? Yes, I guess I'm saying that, right?
That's fair.
Oh, we could actually go into an editorial from the LA Times and major journals that really got me ticked off. I mean, they're basically saying, in the absence of proof that that those foods are causing any health problems, it is a little bit excessive to demand to know what's in the foods. I mean, are they crazy?
Yes, it's kind of sad, some of the silliness that the mainstream guys say without any science behind it. It's sad. And also it influences people, so it's annoying as well.
Yeah, it is really.
So let me show a non-scientific question here. So let's say by the year 2050, how many people do you think will be alive who are 100 years of age or older?
Well, that number increases actually every year. But when you follow up on the people that are getting older, the average lifespan, it is not because of drug use. It is because of applying simple things, what we in the health movement have been saying, what 50 years ago what started when we used to tell people, well, you want to know about it, go to a health food store, right? And see and pick up the literature there.
Right.
Can't do any harm.
Right.
Right. And all of these things are becoming true. Right. And I mean, how much time do we have?
No, we have a little more time. So give me a number. So I think that the current number is in 2014 or 2013 anyway, there were roughly between 70 to 80,000 Americans who are 100 years of age right now. But by the year 2050, do you want to give me a number you think that how many of us will be 100?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't really want to take that guess because
you are a scientist. You want to see it in print.
See, science right now is really opposed by pseudoscience. And the pseudoscience is basically orthodox medicine, because they are not accepting the basic foundation and definition of lifelong health, which was established by Professor Emanuel Churaskin many, many years ago. Because what he said was, in essence...
Churaskin was an MD, University of Alabama.
MDs, PhDs, MD,
Right.
I mean, whatever he had it, right? I mean, it was a genius.
Right.
And so, anyway, Churaskin defined lifelong health as a state of homeostasis achieved by doing so and so many health practices correctly, right? Now, you try to plug in drugs into that equation, it doesn't work. You don't even have to say anything, right? I mean, that's what I do when I give some talks and when I go to meetings and so on. I said, well, right in the beginning, I said, all you MDs in there, you believe in that drug approach, you know, here's Professor Churaskin's definition of lifelong health, okay? Number one, look if there's a better definition. No, there isn't. National Institute of Health actually accepted his definition, right? And if you can find a better definition, see how you can plug drugs in there, right? And they're all trying to find out. Nobody can ever give you an answer, right? That's really the nice part in this thing. What we are doing is being confirmed, but the constant fight of, as I see it, good against evil is really, I mean, pushing things to the limit. You know, like, okay, the LA Times had a editorial today. It's called the natural, quote unquote, food fight. And so some of the companies that make genetically modified food, they want to classify those foods as natural. And there's a big argument, no, when everybody says, no, that can't be. But in the same process, they are commenting on it and saying, and I don't know whether if this is an idea planted by the genetically modified food manufacturers, whatever. They're basically saying, well, in the absence of any proof that genetically modified food can cause any harm, that is a little bit asking for too much. Well, number one, look at Europe. You can't buy the stuff there, right?
That's right. In the European Union, 15 industrialized nations, you cannot buy genetically modified organism food.
Unless extreme care has been taken to do studies to prove that it's correct, right? And then you look at the Seralini, Cayenne University professor who fed test animals genetically modified food, and he found they have cancer, tumors, organ malfunctions, and so on.
Well, Dr. Hans Kugler, it's been another enormous pleasure to have you speak on your best subject, wellness, and you'll be on again actually next week.
Well, and we'll have also Dr. Gregory Smith on it. His movie, American Addict, the movie, is now released, Netflix and everything else, and we'll have him on again.
Very good.
There's a UCLA professor on there.
Okay,
I
that's
like
real
the
good.
guy.
That sounds real good.
Right.
You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We've been speaking with Dr. Hans Kugler, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Yvonne Beauvais.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bay back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bay Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bay Show, exclusively on latalklive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello, this is Angela DeJoseph. Join me Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific for the Angela DeJoseph Show. Join me as we venture into health, wealth. We're going to give you news, interviews, and entertainment. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, TiVo Radio, and now live on Facebook. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
And now on this portion of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network, special technology correspondent Yvonne Beauvais.
Hello to our listening audience today. I have a very special guest on many levels. Is this gentleman special? His name is Glenn Hogan, and he's the founder of St. Francis. It's a ranch, Rancho St. Francis, and I visited yesterday, and it's amazing. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Glenn, and I'm going to ask him some questions so he can tell you about Rancho St. Francis. But it was beautiful. It's 15 acres. It's a whole ecosystem there of animals and animals that help people, and orchards that are grown to feed people that have been disenfranchised economically, to help out. I was so impressed. I'm so impressed with this man, so I'm really anxious to share him with you. Glenn Hogan started working with his family at a family business from the age of 5. Can you tell us a little bit about, or would you please tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Thank you, Yvonne. My parents, Ed and Marilyn Hogan, are high school sweethearts from Point Pleasant, New Jersey, and we drove out to California in 1961. And they founded Pleasant Hawaiian Holidays. And at the age of 5, the family started working to support one another in the family business, stringing bag tags, my twin and I, for a penny apiece for the travel packages they sold to Hawaii.
Oh, my goodness. So you learned the disciplines of hard work and perseverance and creativity at a young age.
Absolutely.
That's pretty awesome. So tell us a little bit also about your work history. I know that you worked in the resort business and that you had your degree in business, and your master's degree was in hospitality, hotels and hospitality. Would you give us a little bit of your background, because it was such a foundation for what you are doing today?
Well, as I mentioned, my parents founded a travel company, Pleasant Hawaiian Holidays, and as it grew, it became vertically integrated, and we acquired hotels. And I received my bachelor's in business from Pepperdine. I was going to go into law, but I felt it wasn't a right fit for me. And hospitality, I worked in the summer at one of our resorts in Maui, the Kahana Beach Resort at the time. And that really fit well with me. And so I pursued my degree in hospitality and food and beverage and obtained my master's at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And serving the people, and as my parents mentioned and strived, making dreams come true at a very affordable price was something that really resonated with me. And
that's such a positive part of life, because life can be pretty difficult for many people, and yet that's such a healing type of a business, because you give people hope when dreams come true, and it makes it adds sweetness sometimes to what can ordinarily be difficult for many people out there. And it's a business that trains you in excellence. If you're in hospitality, that is a business of supreme excellence on every level. And we talked, and you shared with me that you had 3 guide paths, more or less,
yes,
or a foundation to what was important to you to form your business. And at one point, your business partner came in and said, "No, Glenn, we need to reverse that." Would you tell us a little bit about what they were and how she came in and helped you to see it from another perspective, and how everything flourished when you did that?
Sure. Obviously, being young and growing up in a family business, I wanted to achieve as well as prove to my parents my independent success. And so the guiding principles were really to meet the excellence, as you mentioned, from the hospitality and restaurant industry standards, as well as the expectations for the board.
Mm-hmm.
And second, my parents instilled in us that we had a moral and fiduciary responsibility for the employees, because the employees depended on not only the paycheck they received, but the respect, the continuity, security, if you will, and growth in opportunity, as well as growth in the cost of living increasing. They relied on a company providing that growth as well. So that was number 2, is for the employees. And number 3 was for the people. Again, my parents, I'm blessed to have great parents, and they strived on creating value for the client, as well as creating what they said, pleasant memories. And so my executive, my right hand, Phyllis Webb, she basically, during one call and strategy, told me to reverse that. And it is one where she mentioned goosebumps, or where the hair stands up on your neck and arms. And so that was that factor that tested that. And so we reversed it, where the memories were the first. So it was the people first instead of the performance of the business. Number 2 was the employees. And number 3, at a distant 3, was really the company performance. That would come naturally. And when we changed that upside down, as she suggested, that's when the true abundance came.
So at one point we talked about, and it's hard to factor God out of this because God was very integral in everything that you're doing. And so here you're working in the hospitality business, and then you heard from God again. I mean, you heard what to do initially. That was your training, kind of, if anybody knows a biblical story about Joseph and how he was sent to feed the land of Egypt in a time of famine, and how his time in prison actually trained him for what God actually wanted him to do. You kind of have a similar pattern, I would say, in your life to a modern-day Joseph, in a sense. So what you did in the hospitality business actually trained you for what God had for you next. And tell us a little bit again about when you heard, what you heard, and how the ranch came about. And then we'll talk about what goes on at the ranch.
Sure. Well, our family has always loved animals. And so I was looking at a place for me and my animals to enjoy. And so I found a place, I thought, and I was excited and drove home on a path. Ironically, it's Pleasant Valley, which is, again, a pleasant name. Everything surrounds Pleasant. And I was led to this ranch, and it was for sale. And I stopped. I was with a friend, and there were holes in the road, and it was one where it was definitely a fixer-upper, and I felt, a calling, and I tried to negotiate with God, if you will, that it wasn't my time schedule, and I wanted to work further in my career. And then I was quiet, and that inner voice really spoke to me clearly that it was an opportunity, take it or leave it. It was my free will to choose. And a beautiful peace and a beauty came, and I couldn't ignore it, so I shared it with my parents. And they then provided that opportunity of seeing clearly what was truly possible.
Well, it is the biggest picture of wellness because you have environmental wellness going on there. You have wellness that involves rescuing animals, and the wellness that involves these animals rescuing people, everything from combat veterans to women and children who have been abused to those that are mentally disabled.
Yes.
And they're able to find emotional healing and probably healing on many levels. So the animals are healed. Now the animals are used as healers for the people. And then I'm sure it becomes a very reciprocal relationship. So tell us about that, because, well, I saw the horses. There were all kinds of horses, from Icelandics to donkeys, and I can't think of all the types of horses I saw. Thoroughbred, yes, that beautiful one that I saw. Yes, Arabians, just beautiful. And I know that for thousands of years that horses have been, mystical animals. They're very noble animals, very intelligent animals, beautiful. I mean, I think there's no more beautiful animal on the face of the earth than a horse. And they've been used as companions. They've been used for transportation. They were used as gladiators, as entertainers, as friends, emotional companions. A horse for workers on the farm. I mean, horses have been so integral through, I think we said, 3,000 years of human history, basically, they've been used.
Man figured out 3,000 years ago what to do with the horse and harness the power of that.
Right. So now they're actually being used in psychotherapy as an assistant. It's called equine assisted psychotherapy. And it's increasingly being used for people that have trauma and PTSD. And so I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about the ranch and how the animals get rescued and how they come to you, how they get healed. And I know you have a horse whisperer on your property that I met yesterday, a lovely man.
Yes.
So you take it away, Glenn.
Sure. Well, my father, I'll just back up a little bit. My mother and father, they wanted to start a foundation in 1999. And so they decided to sell Pleasant Hawaiian and give while their hands were warm, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And they have big, warm hearts too. And so one of the components was a ranch that is dedicated to the legacy of St. Francis of Assisi. And St. Francis transformed lives through the power of love one another. And so we have that legacy being honored at Rancho St. Francis by rescuing the animals and transforming them through love and care, as well as then St. Francis was known for his legacy on the environment. That's where the heart of the garden, we have a Garden of the Worlds, excuse me, and we have a productive farm there now that's feeding food share and manna and people that are struggling to put food on their table. So with the concept, what we do is we rescue the animals and we then put them in a program, whether it's a sanctuary program for the ones that are older and that have difficulty in functioning fully to their full potential because of their injuries and abuse and neglect and age. And then we also have a rehabilitation and a training program for those that are capable of having a very productive life to give back to others. And then also a rehabilitation program. And so when we have the programs successful for the horse that are able to then give back, they help abused children, emotionally and physically abused women, you're mentally challenged, autism, Down syndrome, and the whole spectrum of mentally challenged people that are out there, as well as your military people, the families that are here that are have loved ones that are either serving our nation or fallen heroes, as well as the veterans. Mm-hmm. So the horses, as you mentioned, are very intuitive and they can really pick up on their emotions, and it's remarkable how the connection and how they can help one another.
So I find it interesting that certain horses obviously have a greater degree, I guess just like people, that here they've gone through such abuse and neglect themselves. I mean, you shared with me how sometimes they're just left without food and they're left without care. And even as a colt, they're left in really compromised situations, and you've taken them into your sanctuary and they've become healers themselves.
Yes.
So with the combat vets right now, we shared that they're coming back from Afghanistan and from Iraq, and there's not a lot of assistance available for them to heal. It's very difficult to come and to reintegrate into society when you've gone through such severe trauma.
Yes.
And I think that the stats on PTSD are probably fairly low that they give for these. I think if not all of them come back fairly traumatized, because we discussed that they're turned into killers because they fight war. Now you have to come back into a society where we're expected to, they're expected to reintegrate and care for their wives and their children, but they're not the same person that left. So how does that work now, working with them? What kind of work will you do with the vet when they come in and the horse? Will they ride horses? Do they just learn to work with the horses or to feed the horses? What will you do with them?
It is a very dynamic and evolving program. As you mentioned, it's something that's not discussed as much as it really needs to be. And there's a great shame that I'm experiencing with the vets and the people that come back, because they're trained to be strong and they're stereotypically your men that are fighters, and they have a guilt and a shame to even acknowledge or to discuss because it's a form of weakness they feel. Mm-hmm. And so the key is really the awareness and to have programs available to them and to have those topics in the forefront of our discussions at this point, I feel. And the second area is just being there, genuinely being there and showing care and compassion without any excuses or really, patronizing them. They deserve the respect and they deserve to be honored. And so each is really unique unto themselves, and we treat each person and each animal that comes to the ranch as a unique individual. And so it really is based on the free will of them. But typically, as trite as it may sound, it's that love and respect and honoring that so that they feel that is incredibly healing in itself. And then from that point, the journey starts, and it really is up to that client, because you can't force that, and it needs to be on their terms and at their pace. Mm-hmm. And so it's very unique, and it's something that we're just starting, and it's a slow process because of the stigma and the challenges that are faced with the people that do come back.
So how many people a week visit your very beautiful sanctuary in Rancho St. Francis?
Well, thank you, Yvonne. There's 100 people that come through the ranch on a weekly basis. It's free of charge to the people, and we target areas such as our military, the abused children and abused women, and the mentally challenged that rely on state funding that's being diminished due to budget cuts, or charitable donations to organizations that provide services to these areas of need in our community. However, they're feeling the challenges due to the economic climate we're in.
So a little bit more about the horses as the role of therapists, because I know they're very sensitive. So in these different groups that come, you have 100 people a week that come. In what capacity do they come? Do they come to groom? Do they come to learn to saddle? Do they learn to walk the horses? Do they learn to ride the horses? Do they learn to feed them? Or is it all of that or none of that?
It's all of that. Mm-hmm. They come, and then we pair them off, and it really depends on what their comfort is. As you mentioned, we have many different types of horses. We have mini horses, and we have a program that we call Mini Steps. And give you an example is we have Daybreak is a program that we serve, and it's emotionally, physically abused women that were really lacked the confidence and didn't have the self-esteem to work with the large horses. So we paired them, as well as some of the abused children, with the miniatures, which are cute.
I saw them. They're really darling.
Yes, and they're easy to approach because they're like a size of a large dog, and people fall in love with them very quickly.
They were so affectionate.
Yes.
I was so delighted yesterday when I saw them.
They're small with big personalities.
Yes, I saw that. That is very true. So you also have organic orchards, I believe, and you're growing,
yes.
Is it citrus? And what other types of foods are you growing on the ranch property?
We grow seasonally different types of fruits and vegetables. And for instance, this summer we produced a few 100 pounds a week of tomatoes. And right now we have your cabbage and your broccoli and your cauliflower and your lettuces, spinach, and other types of produce for the winter harvest. And we grow it from seed or small plants to harvest those and then donate them to Food Share, Manna, and other groups and churches that feed the homeless and the people that are struggling to have food on their table.
Would you tell our listening audience today how to contact Rancho St. Francis?
Sure, I'd love to. We're on the web at Rancho St. Francis, all one word, FRANCIS.org. Or they can follow the link under the HoganFamilyFoundation.org to find our ranch.
Well, I will tell you, for all of you listening today, that the ranch is absolutely beautiful, and you will step into a sanctuary paradise of beautiful ranch white fencing for the animals and trees. And there's a breeze that runs through there, and there's so much peace that's there. There's beautiful dogs that have a run, and he's made it like a resort for animals, which I made a comment to him when I saw these beautiful ponds that have been developed for watering the animals, and they're quite aesthetic. And I noticed a lot of people showing up as I toured the facility. It's very accommodating to people, very inviting. And who is invited to come?
Basically, it's groups. We have programs, and then unfortunately, it's not open to the public because of the work we do. However, we do have volunteers, and they can find that on our website. And we do have gardens at the Gardens of the World that are open to the public. We have different programs, and people that have challenges that they see on our website, they can go through the different agencies, and they then can visit the ranch through those agencies.
I was going to say, agencies that have outreaches to help people in these categories are the people that should be contacting you. And then they would set up an appointment to come see you, and they could bring their clients and the people that they're working with as an extended part of their healing process.
That's correct.
That's incredible. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our listening audience today?
Well, we just have a lot of fun, and are fortunate to be able to work with the animals and the clients that we serve.
Well, thank you, Glenn Hogan from Rancho St. Francis. This is LA Talk Live. Here's to Your Health with Josh Lane. I'm the guest host today, and my name is Yvonne Beauvais. And what a pleasure and a privilege, Glenn, for you to be here today and to share the ranch with everybody in our listening audience. You have a great day, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Yvonne. My pleasure.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.